Today is September the 4th, 2019. My name is Tanya Fincham. I'm with Oklahoma State University, and today I am in the police department. I guess I should say that municipal building for Stillwater, to speak with Rob Hill, who is the Director of Stillwater Emergency Management.
That's right.
And this is part of our O State Stories project featuring the Homecoming 2015, which we'll get to a little bit later. But let's start with learning when and where you were born.
Okay. So, like you said, my name's Rob Hill, and I was born here in Stillwater, September 6, 1971, in the old hospital. Yeah. I think it was 11:30 at night, I believe.
So almost the next day.
Almost the next day. That's right. Yeah.
And were your parents from here?
My parents were both here. As a matter of fact, my granddad on my mom's side was a police captain, and his picture's upstairs in the lobby.
What time period would that have been?
Well, let's see. He died when I was really young from cancer, so I'm gonna say for him to make captain, probably 50s and 60s, because I think he died in 74 or 75.
So we're 50, 60 years ago.
Yeah. So
were they from Oklahoma?
So I don't know that much about their history, but I know my grandma on my mom's side is her family's primarily Polish.
Okay.
So I don't know about my granddad's side, but as far as I knew, they were from here.
Okay.
And because all the stories that they have are, while they lived here.
And when they first arrived in the area, do you know if they were farmers or?
I don't.
Okay.
I know more about my dad's grandparents than anybody, because we lived next door to them when I was growing up.
And do you have brothers and sisters?
I do. I have a full sister, and then I have a half brother.
And where are you in the lineup?
I'm the oldest.
You're the oldest.
Yeah, I'm the oldest by 3 years, sometimes, and 4 years sometimes. Just depends on when the birthdays fall.
And where did you go to elementary school?
Westwood. So that's the one they just tore down not too long ago, and that's the new one that they just opened.
So the old one is where you went, or was there
The
one
old
even
one's where
before
I
that?
went. Yeah.
Okay.
So I think that school was constructed in the 50s, and they just tore it down. So, and I got 2 bricks.
Yay.
Yeah, I went by and got 2 bricks. I didn't do what I was supposed to do, and pay the $20 to get the label on them. I just went by and asked a guy that was working there, said, "Hey man, would you mind walking over there and picking me up a couple of bricks?" And so that's how I got them.
And you aren't going to throw them through any windows. So
No,
good.
I'm going to keep them. I got them home, and I actually kind of looked and went, "Well, this is kind of nostalgic, but what am I going to do with these bricks now? Now I have to deal with them." So doorstop or something, right? Yeah.
And then you would have gone to Stillwater High.
So I went
Middle school.
I went to middle school in the community center now. What's the community center now?
Okay.
Had PE at 12th and Duck, where the public library is now. There's an open field and a building down there. We used to go down there. We used to walk the 2 blocks down and change clothes and do PE and then come back. And then I went to the junior high, at the new junior high. And then my freshman year, I was actually in 2-a-days at the high school, and I moved to live with my mom. My parents were separated when I was 12, 13 years old, and I went to live with my mom in Pawnee, and then finished high school in Pawnee.
Okay.
Yeah.
A little bit of a difference between Pawnee and Stillwater.
A little bit, yeah. But I about midway through my senior year, I moved back to Stillwater, and then I just drove back and forth to finish out the year.
You graduated from Pawnee.
I did.
In 1990.
Yeah, May of 1990. And the weekend that I graduated, they had the big tornado here in Stillwater that did damage on the northeast side of town that the little boy was killed in.
Yeah.
Okay. So a pretty damaging tornado came through, and a mom and a little boy had left a trailer house because they had always heard that when a tornado comes, you don't want to be in a trailer house. They left the safety of their trailer house and come to town to stay with somebody in town that had a more sturdy structure. and actually drove into the path of the tornado and got caught in the driveway. So yeah, and the little boy perished as a result.
1990.
May of 90. So I don't remember exactly what day that was on, but I graduated on a Friday and I started working for the city the next Monday. I worked in Parks and Recreation Department.
And what was your plan at that point?
I didn't have one.
Didn't have one? Just
No,
get money.
just trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life and where I wanted to go and what I wanted to do, and was perfectly happy there.
Had you been in FFA or 4-H in high school?
In high school. Not as involved as, the other kids that start out in 4-H, because they start out pretty young and stuff, but I was in FFA in high school and learned how to weld and learned about animals and did some livestock judging and stuff, but played sports and whatnot. So not too heavily involved in FFA.
What was your favorite subject, if you had one?
Science. And it wasn't for science, but it was because I really liked my teacher. Yeah, Mr. Harp.
He tried to talk you into being a teacher or something yourself?
No, didn't talk me into that. I was an average student, but I really liked Mr. Harp, and I really tried extra hard because I really wanted to please him in his class. Yeah.
Well, back in those days, did they have a good guidance counselor that would try to help steer students in certain directions? A lot of times they did.
They did, but I don't know if I made that radar.
Okay.
I don't know if I made the radar.
Oh, that's okay.
We hauled hay. I worked at the Skeety elevator or the mill in the summertime. Hauled hay for the Heislers. Pretty much just did everything a country kid does.
How big of a class size was Pawnee?
I think I had 35 in my graduating class.
Versus here would have been 300 or so.
Oh yeah, probably 400 or 500.
Yeah. Big
Yeah.
difference. Which did you like better, the bigger or the smaller?
Probably smaller. To be honest about it. Yeah, less. I had closer friends in a smaller school than I did at the bigger school. But I had more friends in bigger school.
Okay. And Mr. Harp was at Pawnee?
Pawnee. Yeah, he was a science teacher.
Have you been back to visit with him?
I haven't. I think I got word a while back that they might have moved. He had twin daughters at the time. His wife was a teacher as well. I can't remember if she was math or science, but she was a teacher. And they had twin daughters. And I think as soon as they graduated and started college, I think he moved, if I remember right. But no, I went back not too long ago to try to see Bobby Miller, who was my driver's ed teacher, my history teacher, and my football coach. And I saw in the paper where he was going to retire, and I went back to see him and just congratulate him on his successes, over the years and his retirement coming up and everything. And I missed him. He was already out. He was done, right? He had signed all the papers. He was just on time off, and they were on vacation, so I didn't get to see him. So I just left him a handwritten message with the lady at the office.
Well, he'll know where to find you when he gets.
I hope so.
Gets a chance.
I hope so.
So you graduate and you had to work. How did the job come about for Parks and Rec?
So my dad has been the civil defense director for as long as I can remember. It started out with Payne County, and then it transitioned to the city of Stillwater. And at the time, he was doing what I'm doing right now when I graduated high school. And he told me that they had part-time jobs open or seasonal jobs open at Parks and Recreation, and that to get my foot in the door, I should apply. And sure enough, I did. I was accepted. And that was back before you had to go through HR to do your application. You just turned your application in at the department that you wanted to work, and they would hire you or interview you and determine whether or not you were eligible to be hired. And so Larry Devers and Rodney Wilson, they hired me. And so seasonal work was usually from May to August when school started. And if you made it past August, you were usually kept on as a part-time employee. So when August rolled around, I wasn't enrolled in school or anything. So I thought, well, I'm gonna wait this out and see what happens, and I guess I'll make them run me off, or let me go. And they came to me about 1st of September and said, hey, are you going to school? Are you going to, what are your plans moving forward? And I told them to work here. And they said, okay, well, we're going to hire you on as full-time or part-time. So I would work 40 hours a week just without benefits. And then you get to overwinter and work with the rest of the crews, be assigned to a very specific crew. And then we would do different things throughout the summer or winter maintenance wise. And then we got to help lead some of the college kids that came in the following year. Yeah. So, and like I said, I really had no aspirations to really go anywhere or do anything. I did take a few college classes along the way, but didn't graduate from OSU or any college. And but I did really like taking the night classes at Meridian Technology. Took quite a few of those, actually. As a matter of fact, for about 3 years straight, I was enrolled in some night classes and sometimes even 2. So if they met for 2 hours and I had another one that would meet for 2 hours later, then I would take those 2 classes, whether it was a Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or a Tuesday, Thursday, whatever it was, I would take those.
What was the subject area?
Most of it was stuff like Excel or Microsoft Word or what was it before it was Word?
I should know, but I don't.
I can't remember what it was before it was Word, but basically computer classes. Took some Lotus classes.
Well, that's come in handy today. All of those.
Yeah, absolutely. And, who knew taking those classes that the class would last and carry through for about 5 years, and then they would change again. And then you'd have to take a whole other set of classes to try to keep up. But that kind of got me in the door so that I had some computer skills. And one of the best classes I have, and I'm telling you to this day, one of the best classes I took was with Mrs. Reamer, and it was typing, standard typing class on a regular typewriter. No, our computers were Apple IIs, so they were very, very early vintage computers, and it was just simply XY coordinates, drawing pictures. Right, that was our interaction. We didn't really do anything else with those. And but typing was probably the one thing that I took that was the best class.
That was at Meridian, or was that
that was at
high
school? That was in high school. Yeah.
So how many words a minute could you do?
I could do about 17. I think my best at one time was 20.
Words a minute?
Yeah, 20 words a minute. And then for every mistake, you'd lose points.
Yeah.
But now, I would say I'm a lot faster now than what I was. I can sit down and peck the keys. Now that's not saying I don't wear out that backspace key, but yeah, I can type pretty good. But I have to say that I had to take 2 typing tests for different jobs that I applied for.
Mm-hmm.
And it came in very handy because there's a lot of people that were applying for the same jobs that couldn't pass a typing test.
Hmm.
And when I would type, you'd have to know how far to space down from the top of the page, and how many times you'd hit the return, or how many times you'd roll the knob on the typewriter to get it the spacing just right, and everything was very formatted out. You just enter the data and it puts it in the right place for you.
You don't type all the way down to the last inch of the paper.
That's
You
right.
have to start all over again.
That's right. But that's probably the best class I took. It was probably the hardest. I had to work at it the most. Just sitting there, just one time, just one key, one after another, getting that muscle memory of where that key's at.
Mm-hmm.
And, to this day, the letter V and the letter B, I will inadvertently hit the wrong one almost every time. So I didn't practice enough on those, apparently.
Mine's getting the pinky to work over there.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah. And that was the other thing. I've got pretty good sized hands, so I can reach all across the keyboard. And then the one thing I picked up on my own that I wanted to teach myself was 10 key. Because when I worked at Parks and Rec, one of the jobs that I had over the course of the many years that I worked there was data entry, and 10 key was when you look at it, everything's backwards. You'd think that the one would start at the top and go across like a phone, but it's just the opposite. So I had to sit and practice and learn 10 key. So now I can finally do it. I can find home, on the number 5 key, and then I can do the 10 key. Not super fast, but I can do it without looking. I know it's accurate. So little things, right?
Little things, they add up, don't
That's
they?
right, they do.
Okay, then continue on with your career path there.
Okay. So
From part-time to...
yeah, so from seasonal to part-time, I worked for the city 4 or 5 years. I think it's closer to 5, maybe even 6 now that I think about it. As a part-time employee, I never could seem to get a full-time job, and I thought, you know what, I'm getting one, right? I'm getting a full-time job, and finally they had a maintenance worker position come open, and see, there were other part-time employees there that had more time in, so I won't say that it was based on time served, but it was based on the amount of knowledge that you had and how effective you were with working with the crew and stuff like that. So I had several people in front of me. And back then the jobs didn't just come open all the time like they do now. But anyway, I got a job, and believe it or not, the first job that I got, I applied for an office position. There was a lady that worked in the office. She was fairly young. She was going to become a police officer and go to OSU. And she was going to vacate her job, and they needed somebody in there because that person did all the payroll for the whole department. And, you had walk-in customers, you had to sign people up. And believe it or not, I'm not really a people person. I can turn it on, but if I had my druthers, I would either be by myself or just with a select group of people. I don't know. I've always been that way. In this job here, I had to learn to be a people person, customer service oriented. Had to be able to help them out and do whatever it was they needed to do, whether it was sign a kid up for a sport or enroll in a program or whatever, right? Because there are lots and lots of things going on back then. And the payroll was probably the hardest. And I thought, man, I don't know if I'm the right person to be doing payroll. But the payroll would come to me, and I had to make sure that all the days equaled 8 hours, if that was their schedule. All the weeks equaled 40. And then the entire sheet equaled 40. And if it was over 40, why was it over 40? Or if it was under 40, why was it under 40? And if they used sick leave or annual leave or personal holidays, had to make sure that was all accounted for. And so I did that for, quite a while, actually, 3 or 4 years.
How many employees, or maybe how many were you doing that for?
45. So not too
while.
many. Yeah, a little bit. And so we could start on some of them on Wednesday night, but they all had to be done by Thursday morning at 10. That's when the time sheets got turned in, because our weeks are Thursday to Wednesday. So Thursday is the beginning of the pay period, or the beginning of the new time period. So I had to process those, and then customer service and using the cash register and invoicing people and stuff like that. So I just learned how to do a whole lot of different things in the office. And after a while, I wanted back out. I got tired of working in the office. I was inside. I'd see summer come and I'd see summer go, and I'd see winter come and I'd see winter go, and by nature, I'm an outdoors person. I like being outside. And I applied for a maintenance worker 2 job that was going to morph into a senior maintenance worker job. And got it and was accepted. So I went back down to the maintenance portion of Parks and Recreation and worked outside. So from 1990 to 2002, roughly. I worked at Parks and Rec, various positions, and there was about a 2-year stretch in there that I actually left Parks and Rec and actually worked for customer service, and I read meters. Yeah, electric and water meters, and it's amazing what people don't understand about meter readers. They walk out of here at any given day. In 4 different cycles. Towns broke up into 4 different cycles, and they'll walk out of here with what they call a passport. And it's got all the addresses listed in it. And somebody has sat down and said that if you walk this route, this is the best route to walk, and it's got the addresses listed that way. And you walk and you go to every house, and you read the electric, and you go to every house or business, and you read the water. And you key code all that in. So I did that for a while.
Do they still do it that way?
They do.
Yeah.
Now we have some AMRs for automatic meter reading on the waters, and they're working to transition to electric. But for the most part, we still have 5 or 6 meter readers that go out and they read what we call 4 different cycles every month in this town. So cycle 1 is the southeast, cycle 2 is the southwest. Cycle 3 is the northwest, and then cycle 4 is the northeast.
I don't know that I've ever seen one
Oh, yeah.
in my neighborhood, but I work during the day, so
Yeah.
maybe I don't.
So the best thing that you always wanted was you wanted apartment complexes, right? Everybody wanted cycle 4 because you could go stand in front of a whole bank of electric meters and knock out 300 or 400 meters out of your 600 for the day, and then all you had to do was go read 1 water meter for the entire complex and then go on. Places that you didn't like were some of the older neighborhoods, and they would have the old can style meters, and you actually have to get into the backyard and actually be able to go stand in front of it to read it, and you read it from left to right, but the gauge on the right determines the number on the left. So there's 5 numbers, and so this one, to know if it's a 2 or a 3, you gotta look to see where it falls, and then you gotta see, is it past 0 or is it before 0? If it's before 0, it's the lesser number, and so forth and down the line. So, but you get to where you just do that really quick. And then the meters, some of the meters were like that, the water meters, they were like that. They had 4 dials on them, and then some of them just read numbers straight across. Now, the new ones are almost all digital, and you just wait for the number to come up. You just punch in the number and go to the next one. Yeah. And then some of them even have the little LED where you just hold it up there and it just reads it to it. You don't even have to wait. It just tells you what the reading is.
Well, then that keeps you out in all kinds of weather too.
Yeah. Absolutely. Walked in snow, walked in floods, walked in wind. I mean, just everything that you can imagine. Every type of weather environment. Walked in the sun, it was just beating down and just cooking you to death, and all the way to can't put enough clothes on to go out and read. And the one thing that I hated more than anything was if it rained a certain amount, we could estimate for the month. And estimating means they were just going to take however much water they used the month before and just say they used that same amount, and then they would catch back up the following month. Mm-hmm. Okay. We used to carry around 1 gallon coffee cans back when they were metal. And you'd take the lid off and you'd have to stick that can in there and dip all the water out till you could get to the meter to read it. Yeah, so that would slow you down.
Yeah.
And almost every time, seemed like every time you get on a good street, every water meter can was full of water. You couldn't just blaze right down the road. It'd take you a little while. Yeah.
So you opted to get out of that one fairly soon. That job.
I want to say it was close to 3 years actually.
Well, not that quick.
And went back to Park and Rec as a senior maintenance worker, running a crew, working for a crew chief who may have 2 or 3 crews underneath him. And then I did that for a little while until 2002. And there was a shakeup in this department. So we have our part of our budget is funded by what we call the Emergency Management Performance Grant, and that's a grant from FEMA that's administered by the state of Oklahoma, and then that money is brought to Stillwater. Well, in the time, that money that they brought in paid the salaries of the employees. Well, in order to be the recipient of that grant, you have to do a certain amount of work. There's certain things: public outreach, training, exercises, attend the conference, and some other things. Well, at the time, my dad had been here, since the late 70s, and left in 91 and went to the state of Oklahoma. And then Ralph McFadden took over. And Ralph worked from 91 until, either late 90s or early 2000. I think it was around 2000. He retired. And then Steve Trumpler, who was a dispatcher, he got the position. And Marcia Long was a deputy. And that was about the time they were going through this entire building renovation. Well, emergency management was heavily involved with that process, and there were lots of things, with the access control system, the cameras that were being installed, telephone systems, the networking for the computers and everything. And they got behind. And they just continued to get farther and farther behind until the state had no other option but to say, we're canceling your funding. Well, as soon as that funding was canceled, it terminated those two positions. So McNichol, as the police chief at the time, this department answered to the police department. Okay. And he said, well, if we don't have funding for those employees, we can't just pick that up out of the general fund or out of the employees' pay. So we got to terminate those positions. So Kirk Middlestead was appointed over emergency management, and they were in the process of transitioning. So not every office here was occupied. A lot of people were still off-site, working off-site. Down here, we actually called what we call our emergency operations center. We actually called it the junk room. Yeah, we did. Because that's where you brought your stuff and you just tossed it in the floor until you could come back to it to get this equipment installed. And so Kirk reached out to Jim Scott, who's been a long-time employee. And Jim worked at Parks and Rec at the same time as a programs manager for the recreation side. And he said, Kirk, I don't know anything about phones. I don't know anything about radio. He said, we need to get Rob Hill, who has learned a lot of that stuff from his dad, and get him over here. So I came over and we sat down. We had two big meetings because I was actually working at Parks and Rec. And they said that they listed out the top 10 priorities, the top 10 secondary priorities. So if we were ever on hold on one of our major priorities, we knew we were going to start working on this. And when I came in, I said, well, I know how to hook up a home phone, and I know how to do that, but I don't know how to do these 8-wire phones. They said, all right, we're going to bring somebody in from Chickasaw. They're going to come over, and they're going to spend a couple of days with you. They're going to show you how the building was wired. They're going to show you how the phones hook up. And then we're going to have somebody from the AT&T come and show you how to program these Merlin phones. So that was the style of phone. It was a monochrome computer and the keyboard, and you just typed in codes and it would program the phone. Much different than what we have today with the IP phones. So I learned the difference between what they call wall-to-closet wiring and floor-to-floor wiring. I learned how to trace those out. I learned how to make sure that they were wired correctly, that they were plugged in and working right, and that we could program phones. Because under Carl Weinog at the time, even though I was working for Kirk, we were having to install phone lines. We were having to do all the punch downs. We were having to make sure that the building was wired for network and phone. So I spent the next spent the next 2 years on loan from Parks and Recreation working in this building. We worked 7 days a week, anywhere between 12 and 20 hours a day, depending on the project, because we had to get people in this building because we had a timeline, and there was bond deadlines with the money that was appropriated for the project. So in that first year, I worked 4,200 hours. Yeah, missed. One of the things that we picked up that I had no idea was we picked up 911 at the time. And I remember that first Christmas, we were actually going to get some time off. They told us, you guys got to take some time. You got to go spend with your family. I want to say Christmas was like on a weekend. And Wednesday evening, I got a phone call that said that the 911 system was down. And back at that time, we hosted the 911 system for the county. So the master system was here, and then we have all the slave systems out into the field. And there was something wrong. And I just remember sitting for hours and hours and hours on the phone with the techs, doing different things, trying to bring these systems back online, getting them to work, because as long as it was down, people would dial 911, they wouldn't get anything. So it was our first and foremost priority. Yeah. And I remember that was Wednesday night. Thursday night, I got to go home for a very short time, and then I came back because we thought we had it fixed, and it turned out it wasn't. And then it seemed like Christmas was on Friday or Saturday. So Christmas Eve I was here. Christmas Eve night. Saturday came and went, and I got to go home Tuesday. It was that big of a deal. It was that big of an outage. Now, it wasn't down the whole time, but whatever was happening, and if I remember right, they were trunk cards. So a trunk is a set of lines that come into the building, and then a card is associated with it. So anytime 911 comes on one of those lines, comes to this trunk card, this card routes it to the appropriate. We were having those card failures. That's what it turned out to be. But so in 2003, Kirk told me that they were going to open this second position up to hire, and that I would have competition, for this position. But unbeknownst to me, they were writing the job description around what I was already doing, and I was the only one applied. Hey. So I went through by this time, this was from when I started in 90, where you just applied for the department that you wanted to work for. Mm-hmm. Now I had to go to HR, I had to apply in the human resources department, and then got an interview. And the interview, once you got accepted and approved, you went for what they call the chief's meeting. And that was Norman McNichol at the time, police chief. And he brought me in and he goes, "You sure this is what you want to do?" I said, I'm sure. I can handle this. And he said, "You sure you can work with Kirk?" And I said, "Yeah, I can work with him." And that's not to say we didn't butt heads. And that's not to say that we didn't see eye to eye on some things all the time. But I will tell you, I've had two fantastic bosses in my life, Kirk Middlestead and Norman McNichol. Two fantastic bosses. Kirk taught me how to think on my own and how to make decisions based on the better for the city and for the department before myself. Also taught me how to do critical incident thinking, and also pushed me and encouraged me to branch out of my comfort zone and get into things that I was going to fail at, things that I would struggle with that would make me a better employee. And then when he retired, Mac had retired from the police department as the police chief and become the public safety director. That was a brief stint, but he became the public safety director. And I want to say in that position, he's the one that hired me to replace Kirk. So again, the only person right there was no interview. I interviewed to make sure that I was squared away, but there wasn't a formal interview process where other people could apply. So I got it by appointment, basically. And what Mac has allowed me to do is make this department my home. He lets me do the things that I need to do to make our department successful. Holds me to the carpet when I make poor choices. So,
That doesn't happen, does it?
not often, but there's time or two, that he'll say, "Man, I'm not real sure what you were thinking here." But he lets me help other departments as need be, without question, without reservation. Right? We support one another internally, and is very supportive. He calls me his adopted son, and with good reason. With good reason. I mean, he's known me, well, since I was born, basically.
He knew your dad?
He knew my dad, and my dad actually worked for him. So I don't know that he gives us a second thought, right, when something's going on. He's told us time and time again, he goes, "I couldn't ask for better people in better positions." He said, "I know you guys are going to handle business, you're going to take care of things, and you're going to get us right back to better than normal." So, yeah.
That's nice to hear, isn't it?
It's very nice. I hear a lot of people say, "Man, my boss just won't leave me alone. He's just constantly just in my back pocket." And I thought, I don't see my boss for a week. It's kind of a good thing, right? So must be doing something right. But
so what year was that when you became?
Oh yeah.
What year?
End of May, 1st of June, 2015.
2015. Okay.
Yeah. So Kirk was going to retire July 1. So we owned the director's position together for a month. So there was three main things that he needed to show me that last 4 weeks that he was here, so that I would make sure that I could, first of all, keep that grant, that EMPG grant. Second thing was to make sure that I could ensure that our hazard mitigation plan was up to date and up to speed. And then the other thing was to make sure our emergency operations plan was current, because those last two are dependent on us getting our monies and being federally eligible for big dollars. So I took over in 2015, June 2015, and then I had David hired shortly thereafter. I want to say he was hired in July 2015, and then Joe was already here. So Joe just hit his 10-year mark, and David's hit his 4-year mark. And life was going pretty good. And we had our first big event coming up, which was homecoming for us. That's a very big event for the city of Stillwater, for multiple departments, not just our office. We get a lot of the credit for it, but we're the coordination piece. We bring everybody together to make sure everything falls in line. And
what would that entail? I mean, anything
the coordination piece.
Like what?
So right now, at the end of July, we started meeting with OSU on this year's homecoming. Okay. So we meet with OSU alumni staff that are over the homecoming steering committee. We meet weekly with them and the students that run that. Then we back up in August and we start hosting public safety meetings with police, fire, emergency management, public works, OHP, 63rd Civil Support Team, the bomb squad, our tactical officers, our sniper teams, our emergency medical teams, LifeNet, the FBI, State Office of Emergency Management, Homeland Security, OSBI. I'm trying to think. I know I'm forgetting a couple. But we meet with those departments, and
all at one time.
Sometimes, yeah. Sometimes we have
a
great
lot
big.
Around the table.
Yeah, sometimes we have great big meetings, and then sometimes, or about once a month, we have a big meeting, and then what we call our we call it the big meeting internally, and then we have our smaller committee meetings. So if there's something that needs to be worked on or planned out, we'll assign a committee to it. And it just depends on if it's a law enforcement function or if it's Penn County Sheriff's Office. That was the one I was forgetting. Yeah, but we'll work on if it's a law enforcement task, who's going to tackle that? If it's a fire task, who's going to tackle that? So lots of safety and security aspects go into this, and we're the coordination piece. We bring everybody together.
And is that kept in a binder or
It is. I actually have a binder on. Yeah, I actually have a binder over there from last year, so I always keep the previous year in print. Right now, everything that we have is electronic because we don't have a whole lot of documentation built up just yet. But this year, we're going to actually branch out, and we're going to everybody carries some type of smart device, whether it's a phone or an iPad or a touchpad or something. And we're going to use ArcGIS and Esri, and we're going to incorporate that where we can send that out to all those people, and without having to kill force. Because time you copy an 800-page document, 90 times, it gets to be quite expensive. So now that if we can do it electronically, I can send it to you on your phone, and you can have everything that we're doing from A to B. From beginning to end right there on your phone. You'll know exactly every step we're at. So that's what we're going to do. So I actually enlisted some people from the State Office of Emergency Management to come in and help us get that set up. So we're very excited.
You have to have a password to get into that.
Oh, absolutely.
It doesn't
Absolutely.
go just to every
No, it's very well protected, and it's actually encrypted because we don't want all of our very detailed, specific plans being able to float out there on the web, where anybody can find them and use them to their advantage. So it's on a closed system and encrypted, and of course you got to have passwords, and we even tossed around the idea of two-factor authentication. So.
Was that sort of thing in place in 2015?
To some extent, but not to the level that I just talked about.
Okay, and some of that is because of
2015. A lot of it's because 2015. Okay. We learned a lot of hard lessons in 2015. The first thing you need to know about 2015 is we were very lucky. We were very, very unlucky, but we were very lucky at the same time. We were unlucky in the fact that we were complacent. The OSU homecoming started back in 1902, and it was a harvest carnival. A lot of poor people in this community and farmers and the university would come together, and they would bring all this food in, and they would have these board games and different things that people did in that time frame. They would host dances to raise money and stuff, but it was to help the community as a whole, not just the university. And in 1920, they introduced their first parade, and that parade wasn't very long. It was only about 5 or 6 little entries, and then somewhere in there they tied it in with football and made it where everybody that had graduated prior came back and visited, and so you got the alumni and so since 1920 we've had this event in this community, and we've never had an incident ever. We've had a couple of kids maybe get too close, trying to chase some candy in the parade or something, but never where we had a car accelerate through barricades and through a police motorcycle and into a crowd of people with the intentions of deliberate and wanting to become famous, that type of thing. So, but we'll go back and we'll talk about 2015. So 2015, planning was going like it normally did. Very well. We had buy-in from everybody. Assignments were being made. Things were on track. But 2015 was different for the fact that we had to change the way we had been starting the parade. Right. We used to start at 12th and Main, but they put the roundabout in at 10th and Main, and we could not get around that centerpiece. So we actually we had to invert our staging area so that we used to funnel everybody to the south into 12th Street and then up Main. Now then we flipped it and we funneled everybody north to 9th Street and then dumped them out onto Main Street from 9th. So everything was going good. Everybody was happy. Things were going just like they were supposed to. And I was actually in a debriefing with our staging staff. So everybody stages early. And then about 30 minutes before parade starts, half of the staff leave and they go to what we call receiving. So we got shipping and receiving. And if you're on the parade route, you're in transit. So if we refer to somebody as shipping, they're in staging. If they're on the transit, they're in the parade route. And if they're at the end of the parade being dispersed to different directions, they're in receiving. So I was doing a debrief with the ones that were left over in staging, actually complimenting them on what a fabulous job they did, because we had inverted the whole process, turned everything backwards, had to learn new staging processes and directions for people to go. And our goal every year is to, I know this sounds silly, but our goal every year is to make sure that everybody's in order. Make sure that you don't have 47 before 46, right? I mean, I know it's little goals, right? But it's the little things that make things successes. But and I remember sitting there telling them, you guys did absolutely fabulous, because we had to invert this whole process. We got everybody out there. We didn't have any hiccups. Everything flowed just like it was supposed to. They kept everybody tight and together. And things were going wonderful. And somebody says, oh my God, Rob, you need to call dispatch and find out what just happened, because they had heard some radio traffic that I wasn't listening, because I had taken my earpiece off my ear and was letting it hang so I could converse, because receiving could see the end of transit in their sight. I mean, 2 blocks down and we're done. And I said, okay, so they've got a couple of things to do. When they get done, they'll come down and I'll debrief them. So I said, what's the matter? And they said, there was an accident. And I said, okay, so I'm thinking, somebody didn't get stopped, or somebody bumped into somebody in a crosswalk or something, right? So I called dispatch, and as soon as they answered the phone, they didn't say, hey, Rob, what's up? Like they normally do, or Stewart Central Dispatch or anything like that. They just said, get your butt up to Hall of Fame in Maine. We've had an accident. I don't get that very often, right? So I knew it was pretty bad. So Kirk, my predecessor, was actually here. He'd come back out of retirement to help us. And he was in the staging area during the debrief. And I said, oh my God, I gotta go. I gotta get up there. Something bad has happened. And he goes, all right, I'll follow you up there, but I'll be a minute. So I left there. I ran lights and siren up there. And I remember thinking, for game day and for Main Street being open, I was able to really get around very well and got up there very quick. And I remember when I got through the intersection of Main and Miller, I just remember thinking, man, how did they get the tape up so fast? And how did they get these outer perimeters set up so fast? And anyway, so I pulled up to the first tape and stopped where the battalion chief and a couple other police cars and a fire truck and an ambulance were at. When I get up there, I can see just not bodies, but people everywhere, but also things on the road that don't belong. There was an exceptional amount of trash. There were blankets and what looked like there were clothes, and I just remember thinking, this is really odd. What? I don't understand. So anyway, I keep walking, and I get up there, and the first person I see is the lieutenant for the day shift, and he is working special assignment for the parade, but is going to go work the game day. And I remember there's just these people just everywhere, and they're just running around. They are no rhyme or reason to the direction that they're moving. They're just random movements. And I can tell people are hurt, and I can tell they're working on people. But I kind of, when I see the lieutenant, all this kind of fades, and I look at him and I give him a thumbs up or a thumbs down. Thumbs up means, hey, I got this. Or thumbs down means, I don't have a clue what we've got. I don't know. And he gave me this. Not sure yet, but we're getting a handle on it. And I said, okay, so he's got full accountability of all of these people. And the next thing I did was I looked over and I see the fire chief. He's just rolled up, and I give him thumbs up or thumbs down. He gave me thumbs up. We're good.
No fires.
No, yeah, we got people coming. We got people here. We're taking care of business. And LifeNet, I remember seeing Michael Offman, and I give him a thumbs up and a thumbs down. He gave me a thumbs down. So they're struggling. And I step back and I try to take an assessment of the processes that are going on. And one of the troopers, a school buddy actually, or a childhood friend, taps me on the shoulder and says, Rob. And he actually called me Robbie because he's a few years older than me. And I can always tell when it's somebody that knows me from when I was a kid because they call me Robbie. He says, Robbie, we got problems. He said, the plan says we're going to transport all these people to get a helicopter at the practice field at Boone Pickens Stadium. He said, but we can't get anybody anywhere. We said, we're out of ambulances. We don't have anything. We can't transport them. He said, the plan's a bust. He said, we're going to set a helicopter down right here to pick somebody up. I remember thinking, what a failure. I remember thinking through the plan, never thought about a mass casualty incident. We always think about the ones and twos, right? We don't think about 3 people that are deceased here, one that's in an ambulance on the way that's going to die on the helicopter ride, from the hospital to OU Children's, to all the other people. And I just remember I picked up the phone and I said, hey, we have got to use one of our mutual aid agreements with OSU to get one of these multimodal buses that are transporting people from parking lots up to the stadium. So we sent our first bus load very early on. We got the walking wounded, and we got all their friends, right? So it seemed like for every person injured, there was anywhere from 2 to 5 people with them. And you can't just take the injured person and leave those people behind because, in a sense, you just injured them, right? You just take them out of the game. So as long as they have a job and they have a responsibility, everybody can kind of keep focused and keep direction. So we would have to transport people together. So the bus took the first group. I remember I never even called the hospital, right? But the hospital luckily paid very good attention to the radio traffic and heard that and started calling people and holding people back that were getting off shift. And word got out on social media and text messages and phone calls and the news media itself. And people started picking up to what had happened. They just didn't know to what extent. And so we had that going on. We had people that were running around gathering trucks to transport people to the hospital and things. And they came to me and they said, hey, listen, there are 8 inbound helicopters to this location. And we're gonna set them right here. And I said, well, this space is not big enough. I said, we're gonna need this whole block. And I said, we're going to actually need all the way down to Starbucks from Main Street to set that many helicopters down. And I said, hold on a minute. And it dawned on me that I had not even gotten what we call PAR, a personal accountability report. And I started counting my people. I knew I had 10 up there. I'm counting vests, right? Picking them out of the crowd. And I do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I get all the way to 9, and I can't find 10. So I hold my finger in the air, and I'm looking for 10 to see. I thought, I miscounted. I counted too fast. 1, 2, 3, get to 7, 8, 9. And the second time I kind of went, this is not the answer I want today. This is not what I need. I don't know. I refuse to accept that maybe one of my people were injured in that. So I counted again. And the third time I come up with 9, and I just remember thinking, no, I'm not taking this today. This is not happening. About that time, they took a step apart, and they were standing side by side, shoulder to shoulder, talking to one another. And I couldn't see the 10th one. So I got the 10th one. I kind of went, whew. Okay, now let's do this thing, right? So I called them on the radio, and I whistled, and I hollered at them. I got them all over there, and I said, all right, here's the deal. I said, see all this tape that's up? I said, all this tape needs to be taken down. We need to get this highway patrol car out of here. I said, I need a landing zone from here to Starbucks. I said, nobody crosses this road. They either walk all the way down to Hall of Fame and Main at the light, cross, but nobody crosses unless there's a big gap and it's okay. And so I get them kind of redirected, and I could tell some of them, the shock is kind of setting in, and they're starting to lock up a little bit. And I remember to a training class that I took, it said sometimes you have to get people's attention to refocus them and redirect them. And I remember, and I still, to this day, I think, oh my gosh, what a jerk. But I yelled at him. I said, hey, I need you to focus. You're here for a reason. We train all the time for this event, and you guys are standing around with your heads down moping. I said, you need to get to work. Fire department's doing their job. Police department's doing their job. All these people are doing their job. You got to do yours. So I said, all right. So I told them about the landing zone again. And I called dispatch on the radio, and it was Tulare that answered the phone. And I said, Tulare, I'm going to be your LZ coordinator because I don't know who else can do this out of here right now. And she said, okay, where are you? And I said, I'm at University in Maine. We're going to land everybody on Hall of Fame in Maine, and I'm going to land everybody on Hall of Fame from the east side of Main Street to Starbucks. And she goes, what's your coordinates? I remember thinking, I just told you where I'm at. And she goes, yeah, without your coordinates, I got to give them to the helicopter so they know where to come. I remember thinking, well, yeah, they do. And I remember thinking, how do I know that? And I took a deep breath, and I was sitting there thinking, I thought, you know what? I got an app on my phone that we downloaded specifically for this. It tells me my exact coordinates. And I said, do you want it in minutes degrees or you want it in decimals? She goes, I don't care. I said, minutes degrees it is. So I pulled out my phone to get the app. It syncs real quick, and it goes, here's where you're at. So I gave it to her. I mean, within seconds of telling her that and her relaying that, the first air ambulance called us on the radio. And the first one was right out of Stillwater and knew where they were coming. So he calls and he says he's going to land. And I knew the hand motions to tell him to go ahead and land, or, move left or move right, or, to come ahead, or, to sit down. I knew all the hand motions, but this particular guy, for whatever reason, he sat down about 4 helicopters back, powered down, let the aircraft stop. His crew exited. They came over. Well, his patient crashed. I say their patient crashed, and they had to take care of the patient. So the patient has to be stable to go on the helicopter. And so what seemed like an eternity, they're on the ground for 20 minutes. Then they get the patient out to the helicopter, and the helicopter starts to spin up, and they finally get taken off. And I just remember thinking, we can't do this again. So kind of learning on the fly, OJT, so to speak. And next helicopter comes in, so I was very specific. I said, all right, pilot, this is what I got. We got a mass casualty incident. I said, I have no patient information. You're taking one of 8 that have got to be transported that are yellow going to red very quickly. And I said, what I need your nose of your aircraft to sit down at the end of this white arrow in this turn lane. I need you to stay powered up. and don't power down. When your crew gets off, we will bring the patient immediately to your crew. And he goes, yes, sir. And so he comes around, and then we set another 3 or 4 more down. So we got 5 on the ground total. And we had room for more, but they were in the process of either getting loaded up and taking off so that there were going to be gaps closer that they wanted to land in instead of being so far away. Because, I mean, we're talking quarter to half mile of a walk on a stretcher. So Air Evac 38 took off, and Air Methods 8 says, hey, we're coming in. Can we have that spot? Yes, sir. Have this spot. When you sit down, I don't have any patient information other than yellow to red, and don't power down. And so learn pretty quick, what to tell them. Anyway, we get done and get them all out of there. There's actually 9 helicopters come to Stillwater. 1 went to Stillwater Medical Center, and that's the one that transported Nash Lucas to OU Children's. And we found out later that Nash died on the helicopter right up there, or was losing the battle very early in the trip, and may have even died just inside. I just remember the doctor that we met at OU Medical was very mad that he never got the opportunity to try to save his life. And so here comes my boss. My boss is, he's pretty slow. He's pretty deliberate, right? He doesn't get in a big hurry. And he comes over and he goes, and I forgot to tell you this, but when we first got there, he walked over and he took my phones from me. He said, you're going to need, he said, let me answer your phones for you. He said, you're going to be busy. He said, let me answer your phones. And I remember thinking, what? But I said, okay. So he took them. He said, when we got back, he said, the state director called you. The deputy director called you. He said, we've had several other people call, need to know what it is you need here to respond and recover from this incident. And he said, so I took care of all those for you. He said, the governor may be calling you here in just a few minutes. He said, if she does, I'll come find you and give you the phone. He said, or I'll take care of it. And I just told him to take care of it. And several people from OSU wanting, updates and wanting to know. And I remember, so when Kirk was here, he thought administratively, he thought logistically, he thought long term. And I always worked in a position where I was more of a tactical person. And I actually did the hands-on stuff. And I'll never forget Chief Bradley, Fire Chief Bradley always says, let me give you a mentor moment. He said, you could have told them how to set that up and let somebody else do all that. He said, but you lost perspective. He said, you thought tactically about fulfilling a role that needed to be done. And he said, you needed to be thinking logistically and administratively to what was going on here in case there was anybody else that needed help or needed you to provide them with something that they couldn't get because you were busy tied up doing a role. And now I still apply that to every response. I think when I go out, is this the best thing for Rob to be doing for this situation? Mm-hmm. So I still use it and I still apply it to this day. But with Kirk answering my phones and talking on my behalf and letting people know what was going on, was big, right? That's time in the field, being exposed that I didn't have yet. And I just remember a lot of lessons learned. So when things kind of calmed down a little bit and we got the last helicopter off the ground and the last patient, there was kind of a small cheer went through all the responders, right? Job well done. We got the last patient done. We've done a good job. It was kind of like the last helicopter left that last person. Everybody's clapping and just subduedly, right? I mean, we still had people that had lost their lives on the ground. But I learned later that the believe it was 145th Infantry, was in the parade, and that they were waiting on their bus. The National Guard, they were waiting on their bus, and their colonel came over to our captain and said, "What do you need? I got these guys standing over here. What do you need?" He goes, "Well, I need people to stand on by these bodies, make sure nobody touches them, moves them, or does anything." He said, "I need them to stand on these key components that are here, the car, the motorcycle, and some other things." And he said, "I need an inner perimeter and I need an outer perimeter. I need to keep people out." And so they set all that up. And that was when I pulled up and I saw the tape. I was like, "How did they do that so fast?" But it was because of their help. And they did us a solid. They worked side by side with us well into the afternoon, right? But it was 10:30, I think, when this happened. And about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, Red Cross had responded to bring meals to the people that were working. They brought counselors out, psychiatrists, and we knew that this was going to be very emotional, very impactful. And I brought all my people up and I said, "All right, here's the deal." I said, "You guys are free to go." I said, "But I need you to go check in with the Red Cross, and I need you to check in with the psychiatrist that they brought out here so that they can capture your name and your phone number." I said, "You guys are going to have to go through some type of mental debrief later." I said, "But this is what we're going to do." And they all went over and got a snack, got a drink, gave the name and the phone number, and then they all came right back. I said, "All right." I said, "So if you guys are going to stay here," I said, "here's the plan moving forward." I said, "Investigations has to get through CID, our Criminal Investigations Department, and our accident reconstructionists have to get through processing the bodies, waiting for the ME, taking pictures of everything, and then we're going to pick everything up." And I said, "When I leave here today, this intersection is going to look like nothing ever happened here, period." And they said, "Okay, we're in. We're good." So accident reconstruction took quite a while. Well, it was getting started at like 2 o'clock. Getting on to be about 5. And the medical examiner finally made it up, took all the pictures. We had to use sheets to hold around the body and under the tent. So because when we exposed the bodies, we didn't want the news media that was flying to be able to take pictures of those bodies. Now, a lot of times, they're pretty good and very aware about that. But if you don't know what it is that's down there and you come across it, you might inadvertently show somebody that knows somebody on TV, and it's just bad. So we helped with that. Once they got done, they got all the bodies processed, got the car out of there, got the motorcycle out of there. All we were left with was the trash. And I mean, there was so much trash. For every 4x4 pad, there was 2 sheets of paper that were ripped open and that was tossed on the ground. Bottles of water, Band-Aid strips, big tourniquet-style bandages. If they used a sharps and injected any type of medication or meds or anything, there was the cap from the needle laying there, and then whatever cotton swab that they used to swab the spot before they administered. And now the sharps wasn't there; they collected those themselves. But if it was trash associated with medical supplies, it was all over. It was in the grass. It was in the creek. It was on the sidewalks. It was in the road. It was in the Red Lobster yard. It was in the CVS parking lot. So we spent about an hour picking up trash. And then I asked the accident reconstruction officer who was in charge, I said, "All these tarps that are out here," I said, "do you need those for anything?" He said, "No, they're all trash." And I said, "Is there anything out here besides the trash that we picked up that you need for your investigation?" He said, "No, we have everything that we need. We're good." Well, we used the green tarps. We used the black tarps. We used every tarp that was out there, and we just loaded trash on it and drug them around and picked up more trash. And I remember thinking my crew was kind of hosing me a little bit because they wouldn't move the bicycles that were damaged. They wouldn't move Nash Lucas's boots. They wouldn't move the stroller. They didn't move the lawn chairs that were sitting in that area. Now, I don't know if it was because they didn't know if they could or not, or if they just didn't want to touch it. But we loaded all that stuff up. I picked it all up and put it on the green tarp and loaded it up. We called Public Works Department to come in and bring in some flatbed trucks. We loaded all that stuff up on those flatbed trucks, and we told them to park by a trash truck down in their lot, and then we would move it from this truck over. Well, they hauled that stuff off for us, and then I asked for the street sweeper to come in. And the street sweeper came in, and he ran all the curbs, and then he ran all the lanes. And now we had the road shut down at McElroy, at Miller, Perkins Road, at Duck, and every intersection in between. We had it shut down and had it confined, because it was now a crime scene from just an accident scene. And so there were barricades that had to be picked up and collected to open the roads back up. But I remember we took about 10 gallons of water over 5 or 6 blood spots and just soaked it in water. And we would have the guy with the street sweeper come by with that steel brush and just grind that pavement. And I remember the blood was black on the top where it would dried and just turned, it was nasty. And when he would scrape that black off, then it would go dark red, and then it would go red, and then it would go bright red. And then we finally got to where we could see where we were getting to the asphalt. And that's when we quit, when you couldn't see blood, when you couldn't see any more trash. We picked it up out of the creeks, off the sidewalks, out of people's parking lots, parking stalls everywhere, and put it in there. And I remember the last thing I did before we opened up Hall of Fame to the east was I turned around and looked at the intersection, and I told everybody, look, I said, all right, this is why we have a job. We have a disaster. We come in, we respond, we recover. I said, we'll go back and we'll do some planning and mitigation. I said, but nobody in this town will know, unless they were here, that something happened in this intersection. We put it back to better than normal. I said, that's what we're here for. We released everybody except those that are absolute. I got about 5 diehards that just will work side by side, shoulder to shoulder with us. It doesn't matter what it is. And we went down to the Public Works yard. And I remember thinking in the back of my mind, we probably should do something with these tarps that's got all this stuff on it and not just throw it away. But he told us that we could throw it away. And so we loaded up in the trash truck. This was on a Saturday afternoon or evening. I thought, trash won't run until Tuesday. I'll be all right. Well, they came in, they saw the truck was full on Monday and decided to just go ahead and run it out there. Well, Monday morning we came in, so I went home about 6 o'clock, and we had been up since 7 o'clock the previous morning. So Friday morning at 7. Went home about 6 o'clock Saturday evening, and sat in the driveway, and the neighbors, they had already heard and knew everything that was going on, and came over, and we just sat, and we didn't even talk about the incident. We just sat and kind of had our own little debriefing session. And Sunday, I chose to stay home from church and not go to church on Sunday because I thought there'd be a lot of questions. People want to know stuff, and plus we were still tired and recovering. Well, Monday morning we come in, and I kind of came in. I kind of went, well, that really sucked. Oh, we don't ever have to do that again. And just kind of sitting in the chair, and it's about 7:30, 7:45, and record says, Rob, come to the lobby, please. You got a 10-12, meaning I've got somebody in the lobby who wants to see me. And I get up there and it's NTSB. So I thought, what's the National Transportation Safety Board doing here? And they introduced themselves and they said, yeah, we saw this on TV, and anytime you have an incident like this, we deploy to these incidents to find out what's going on and what happened. You sent 3 people down. There was a lead investigator, then there was one that did the human aspect, which was Adacia Chambers, investigating her and everything that she did, and then the other side was the planning through the recovery phase. So basically, I had to sit down with my book and go over when we started planning, everything basically that we've talked about now, only in great detail, because that guy had to know everything that I know. Was here for the rest of the week. But that afternoon, that Monday afternoon, I remember the police chief came down, the then police chief, he came down, and he had an elderly lady and gentleman with him. And he said, Rob, these are Nash's grandparents. They're wanting to collect the stroller and the keys and the identification out of the stroller and his boots and everything else that was left. And right then in the back of my mind, that's when I went, I should have listened to my gut. So I called down to sanitation and I said, hey, that truck's still sitting down there? Because they had come to property to collect it. For whatever reason, they thought it was in property. And because of the high nature of the accident and lost life, the chief was asked to come and visit with them and find out if he could run it down for them. And so they came here. I called Waste Management or Sanitation. I said, hey, is that truck still sitting in the lot down there? Because I knew exactly what tarp it was in. Just need to find the tarp. I said, no, they came in this morning. We saw the truck was full, so we dumped it. So I had to get off the phone, and sitting at this table here, I had to tell the grandparents that at the end of the day, when everything was said and done, everything was collected that was needed for the case, and that I was solely responsible for picking up all the trash and debris, and, solely as in it was my department and my people. And that we had rolled it up in the tarps, put it in the back of the trash truck, and the trash truck dumped it. And then for the next 30 minutes, I got told what a low-life bastard I was, and how could I be so heartless as to, throw a child's boots and stroller and everything away, and, what was I thinking, and just, and she was right. I mean, she had every right to be upset. So I called Waste Management Director and I said, hey, I don't want to go into great details and relive this whole thing again. I said, but is there any way that we can meet with the landfill people tomorrow morning early and see if we can dig around, see if we can find that stuff that was in that trash truck? He said, sure, let me check a couple of things. And he said, I'll call you back. So he called me back and he said, 3:00 tomorrow morning, be at the landfill, and we'll go through and we'll start trying to find it before trash trucks start coming out at 6 to dump. So what I found out was on a normal weekend, probably about 6 blocks long, a block wide, and about 12 inches deep is the normal trash that's collected. They spray a fertilizer and grass on it, and then they backfill it with dirt, and then they put another layer. On homecoming weekend, it's about 3 foot deep. And we had the track hoe out there. They kind of knew about where they thought that the trash truck had dumped. And we'd walk around and we would look to see if we could see things that looked familiar, first of all. And we're walking around, we're knee deep in all the trash from the last week, and that spray and the dirt and everything else. And we found the tarp, but the way they spread the trash out and everything, just because the tarp was there, if it had got unrolled like it was when we found it, and the bicycle, we even found 2 of the bicycles. So we knew we were in the right area We never could find the stroller, and we raked through that trash. We dug through it. We moved pieces. We used every piece of equipment they had to try to find the stroller, even the boots. Just because there was keys and ID and her apartment key and some other things that were zipped in a bag on the back of the stroller, and I just remember leaving there thinking that I will never make that mistake again. I will never, ever do that again. I will never throw personal belongings like that away again. And that's been one of the things that's really stuck with me. It's been probably the hardest, because I'm not a grandparent, but I can imagine actually I can't. But I think I know how they feel. I think I understand how they felt. And I wish I had it to give to them, because, it would at least been a bright spot in a very dark time for them. But anyway, so moving forward, everybody went through mental health debriefings. For first responders, they were mandatory. You didn't have a choice. We moved forward. The next year, we really looked at what we had done the year before, and basically every person on the department, the police department, almost everybody in the fire department, I guarantee in emergency management and public works, they all worked, because we changed things drastically, and tried to really strengthen and increase the amount of security that people would have. And each year we change something else just a little bit. It may be subtle, but pays big dividends for us. The next year, we set all these different things in place, and come to find out there was a statewide manhunt for a cop killer that was in this area, and Michael Vance Jr. So 2016, we go into it with the emotional raw feelings that had happened to us in 2015, only to have to deal with that, but with a manhunt. And thank goodness that Friday night, I believe, is when the OHP got into that shootout with him and shot and killed him. And so we kind of relaxed a little bit there. Then the next year, we had that same year, 2016, at the parade. We had a guy drive his motorcycle right around one of the trucks that was blocking the road. Drove around there, drove around the barricade at the intersection, through the people, and out into the parade route. And then couldn't understand why we got so upset about it. So we had to meet with them several times and let them tell us how dumb we were and how overreacting we were, and how we were just using it as a grandstanding opportunity to try to make them and their family look bad. And so 2017 got here, and then they wanted to do the let's see, is that right? 2017? No, 2017 came and kind of went, right? It didn't have. Well, no, we had the motorcycles. So 2018, I'm sorry. So 2018, I'm sorry, I'll get this straight in a second. 2018 came, and now then they want to do the memorial dedication on Friday night. And they invited us to go, but a lot of us couldn't go because we had other responsibilities, because they did it right at the same time the walk around was starting. So we got a lot of staff on barricades and in very specific locations for the event. So we didn't get to attend, but we got to see it later because somebody filmed it. And then they, I want to say 2017, they recognized us at halftime at the football stadium. We went out on the field, and they recognized us as the first responders that responded to the accident. So
in 17 instead of 16?
16. I'm sorry, 16. Yeah, I'm sorry. In 2016 they did. And then so my years run together. Sorry. Yeah, but you're right. No, 2016, and then 17. We had to go drive out in the road, and then 18 last year. Went very well. I had a memorial dedication, but it went very well. And then this year is year 99. So we're making some changes. We have a new police chief and a new deputy chief. They're very aggressive and they're very forward thinking. So we're working with them, trying to get them caught up to speed on all the little moving intricacies of the events, so that they can fully understand when they make a an executive level decision that shifts staffing and manpower and stuff, what it truly means to the event. So we're working with them, and then next year is the 100-year anniversary, and it is going to be big. They have so many things planned for next year. At walk around and at parade and everything. So we're really going to have to. We think we're stepping up our game this year even more, but next year we're going to have to step it up even bigger, because I've heard that there's going to be fireworks and everything else. Yeah. So that is pretty much the gist of 2015.
Well, the instructions and choices that you were making on the spot, had that all been planned out in your procedures manual?
No.
You just were thinking.
When we put our plans together, our plans encompass two scenarios. The first scenario is everything goes according to plan. That's the first plan. The second plan is kind of all hell breaks loose, so to speak, and who's going to be responsible for what.
Okay.
So ordinarily, I'm not a first responder, but because I have such a large piece of homecoming, I'm pretty much included in everything. So I responded to that incident. The decisions that I made, I visited with, or I didn't visit with, but I got hand signs, good or bad, from those people, so I knew.
Well, even that step part of your part you're supposed to do?
Yeah, so we do that a lot anyway, just in day-to-day stuff. So if you pull up on the scene and I walk by the lead officers and I give them a thumbs up or a thumbs down, they respond accordingly. So okay. I know if they don't and they respond like this, I know they need something now from me. So we can coordinate that for them and get it en route. So let me tell you about luck in 2015. Luck favors the prepared for sure. I believe that. Daisha had left Freddie's Custard twice that day. The first time she went north away from the parade route and then came back, and the second time she went south.
And who is she, we should say?
Daisha Chambers, she's the driver.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Daisha Chambers, she's the one that drove the car around the barricade and through the people.
Okay.
Second time she went south. So through video cameras from all the businesses, we caught her driving around the red light at McElroy on South Main, accelerating the whole time. So she went contraflow, came back into the lanes that she's supposed to be. So basically there were people facing south that were trying to turn and go south because the road was closed. She drove around them through the crosswalk, almost hit several people there, around a semi that had just exited the parade, and then went south, and the little black box in her car showed that she was accelerating the whole time. She was at roughly 70 miles an hour when she impacted the barricade, and at 67 miles an hour when she hit the police motorcycle. And then as she plowed through the crowd, you can just see people and objects just flying everywhere. I mean, it's just like what you see on TV. It's pretty dramatic, pretty gruesome. Officers were there at the tail end of the parade because we had like 131 entries for the parade that year, and we were at entry 127. The sheriff's office was like 128. The tail and the fire department was at like 129, and the officer for the tail was 131. So we had all of our primary response agencies right there at the very end of the parade when it happened. So everybody that was ahead of them either disappeared and just morphed into the crowd or just split and let everybody come forward. Fire trucks got there very quickly. We had nurses and doctors and RNs and every part of the medical field that you can imagine in that crowd around that intersection that were able to step up and go, I'm a nurse or I'm a doctor from, or I'm a doctor or I'm a nurse of, and they would just step right in. For every patient that we had, like I said, we had somewhere between 2 and 5 people that were accompanying them. We had citizens that would step up, and as soon as they get on a helicopter, they'd say, hey, I don't know where they're going, but if you do, I'll drive you there. So you don't have to worry about it. And they would just take them and drive them to the hospital. If there was a patient, it would take 3, maybe 4 first responders to tend to that patient, right? There's so many things to get. Their chief complaint, what's their primary problem, what their vitals, all that, their temperature, everything that needs to go into that. Somebody was collecting that information. It was, I'm gonna tell you, it was by the grace of God and just luck that she chose to do that at that time when all of our first responders were right there. We had a cardiac arrest earlier at the Simmons Bank at 3rd and Main, and they transported their patient to the hospital, but at the same time, the supervisor just drove up the road to the incident and became the triage officer.
I wonder too. Yeah.
Yeah. So LifeNet did it. We had a couple of ambulances that had been on transports earlier in the day and thought, you know what, we're going to go sit out here kind of on the peripheral and just watch the end of the parade come through, and could respond very quickly. We had every air ambulance that was available north of I-40 at their station or in transit somewhere where they could peel off and come here. So we had, not only did we have the 9 helicopters that came here and the 8 that landed at the incident, but we had several more that could come in, and we had several that made round trips. They would take a patient and they would come right back. So
in a short amount of time.
In a very short amount of time. The average time of a helicopter on the ground was 4 minutes, with the exception of the first one. Now the first one, I can't remember her name at the moment, but she suffered a traumatic brain injury and was having a lot of medical issues. I'm just trying to get her stable enough to go, and that was the first one, right? And I've talked to her a couple of times. She's very nice. And she likes to talk about the incident, whereas I don't anymore, but she likes to talk about it because it helps her fill those voids that she can't remember. She remembers being there and waving and cheering, and then there's just a blank spot, and she wakes up in the hospital, and she doesn't know what happened. Let's see. Man, I'm terrible with names. I was trying to think of the gentleman that saved the 2 little white girls. He's the one that flew the plane in, the MD-80, and parked it for the last time. And I can see his face, and I can see his wife, and I can't remember their name. Anyway, he pulled those little girls in very close to him and protected them against the car. And he actually got hit. He's the one that lost a leg. And oh my gosh, I'm so terrible. I cannot believe I can't call his name. But anyway, I mean, he just heard that loud noise and just instinctively pulled those little girls. Not even his. They were just standing next to him. He just pulled them in and took the brunt of the hit. Now the little girls, they had to go to the hospital too, but their injuries were a lot less because of what he did. So I'm just a lot of anonymous heroes that day, right? A lot of people did a lot of great things, and they just did it because they're just good old-fashioned people, and they saw a need and they filled it, and it helped out.
An instinct, I guess.
An instinct to help, right?
Yeah.
You see a need and you want to fill it and go do what you can. But oh my gosh, we got so lucky. So lucky, even at a time where we suffered such a huge loss,
Yeah. Are you allowed to talk about some of the changes?
Sure. Sure. Yeah. We really haven't hit anything. We won't talk processes or procedures, but I'll tell you. So before, our intersections used to be open, so we would send a lead car down the parade, and that lead car would come to an intersection, slow down, get everybody to stop, and then the parade would proceed. So kind of using those vehicles as barricades, but the intersection's still kind of open on this side or this side, depending. Now then, we put officers at all the lit intersections, and we put public works people in 1-ton trucks or bigger at all the non-lit intersections or non-lighted or traffic signed intersections, and they park halfway between Main Street and whatever the next closest drive is, so that they can be guaranteed that they are blocking all vehicle traffic. We have sniper teams that sit along the parade route. So if we have somebody that comes through again and attempts something like that, they're going to be shot.
You didn't have that in 2015.
Did
Not that
not.
it would have helped, but
Oh, might have. But it did happen pretty quick, right?
Yeah, right.
I think it was less than 10 seconds from the time she hit the barricade till her car came to a complete stop. One of the things that we got dinged on from the National Transportation and Safety Board was we didn't have enough preemptive signage. So enough roads are closed, special event ahead, turn now, detour, that type of stuff. So now we have very, very variable messaging boards that we put up that read, right, that catch your eye. That say, special event ahead, road closed, turn, whatever it is they say. We have those out. We now have probably 10 times the amount of officers that we had out before. So if we did it before with 6 or 8, now we do it with 60 or 70.
You have to pull them from other places.
Pull them locally or from other smaller communities that we have mutual aid agreements with. One of the things that we looked at was the fire department. The fire department now gets armed security. So they at these special events, they wear their bulletproof jackets and underneath their coats, and then police go with them. So if it's a staged deal where somebody sets off an alarm and then it's going to step back and ambush firefighters as they arrive, we have law enforcement that goes with them that provides them protection so that they can do their job. We have 2 immediate response teams that are made up of our special operations team or SWAT team members. They're fully weaponized. They're fully dressed in military gear with their helmets and their military communications and their jackets and everything, right? So their bulletproof vests and everything, and they respond to any immediate threat that would occur inside the containment area. So that is their primary responsibility. So if somebody calls 911 and says, "Man, there's a guy with a gun down here," that team is going, right? So the Overwatch team or the sniper teams, they try to get eyes on so that they can direct the guys on the ground, but at the same time, the incident response team goes. Last 2 years, we've had the 63rd Civil Support Team here. So they're doing bomb sniffing and sniffing for any type of chemical, biological, radiological, nuclear, or explosive devices that may be. So if somebody wears a backpack, kind of like the Boston Marathon, they have sensors out and they have people out in the crowd sensing people. People that get picked a lot of times are people that are in some type of chemotherapy or radiation. They have a high concentration in their body, and their scanners will pick it up. They just walk over and make brief contact with them, and then they'll give them a bracelet to wear, and they change colors depending on the event. They give them a bracelet, so if they sense that again, they can look and see the bracelet and they go, "No, we've already talked to them, we're good." OSU, with the labs, they do a lot of Department of Defense contracts and stuff. So there'll be kids that will have their backpacks that will be exposed to those chemicals. There won't be anything in them, but they'll be exposed to them. They'll have it on their clothing or their skin or their backpacks or whatever, and they'll walk in the crowd and we'll stop and converse with them. Last year, to increase our presence, we actually deployed the Payne County Sheriff's Office mounted posse. So we had 4 or 5 horses here last year that their job was crowd control. So if something was to break out, they would deploy the horses in that location to keep the crowds back while the police officers worked the event. We reach out to our area ambulances, let them know what's going on so that they can be ready to respond, as well as our emergency medical transport services. And, I already mentioned all the other agencies. The bomb squad's going to be here. They're here for every football game. We're bringing them in. We bring in a regional emergency medical support team, or a REMS team, to come in. They can treat up to 250 patients if we have an event.
Who pays for all this?
State of Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Now, DPS will pick up bomb squad. 63rd, the Army will pick it up, or the Air Force will pick it up. So all their respective jurisdictions. Now, all of our overtime and everything, we pay for that. So even though it's an OSU event, happens on city streets. So city gets left holding the bag for securing it, making sure it's safe and everything else. You're going to see this year, we're going to actually put out a lot of PSAs starting at about 2 weeks from now that talk about what you can do as a walk around participant. If you're going to go to walk around, this is what you can do as a goer of that event. Don't bring a backpack, don't bring a dog, don't do this, don't do that. Those types of things. There's lots of things that we're going to try to put out to try to help make people safer. We're going to put it out on all of our social media platforms, trying to reach everybody, just to let them know. So
that can be problems and be a solution to
absolutely.
Will you change the order of who goes when in the parade?
So we don't do that.
Okay.
We let the homecoming steering committee, the parade chair, we let her committee. It's actually a Maddie Hendricks this year, but we let her do it. We let her decide. I think the top 12, they never change. But then the bands, they'll alternate. So if they were at the back last year, they'll be at the front this year, and then whoever was at the back, they'll move them to the front, and they move them around. And there's things that they have to be aware of, like you can't put animals in front of a band.
Yeah, that's true.
So not because of what the animals can do, but because we don't want the animals to get scared. We've started going around now, and if somebody's driving specialty equipment or something, we go and visit with that person before they ever drive that morning to make sure that they're not intoxicated. We also make sure that there's multiple drivers, so if somebody can't drive that equipment, it's not just stopped in the middle of the road, and that somebody else could drive it. So if you bring specialty equipment, you got to have 2 drivers. If you've got moving things or you got generators, we make sure that they got the extension cords secure. We make sure that they've got the fire extinguishers on board and stuff like that. We've quit letting semi trucks that are not branded OSU in the parade because we've had too many incidents with the semi truck turning into the parade route. They have to make a very wide turn, and people tend to stand in the intersections. Mm-hmm. And when they stand in the intersections, when that truck comes by, we've had a couple people bumped with the bumper. And then we've also had kids run out for candy to collect candy, only to have the trailer to come back and almost run over them. So we've had to limit the semi trucks. So, people look at us and they think, well, you guys are just a bunch of hard asses. You don't want us to have any fun in the parade. But when we look at it from a safety point of view. Here's a prime example. McNichol was very adamant 2 years ago about how people kept creeping out into the parade route and in the lane. And when you would look at an entry go down, there was only maybe 12 to 18 inches away from people that this vehicle's driving. And this is a regular full-size vehicle that can run over somebody and not even know it, right? So last year, I got with Public Works and Traffic Control, and I said, hey, I want to paint lines down the end, or from the 10 feet out from the center of the middle of the road, down both sides. And I want to make it so that we have a way to say definitively, don't be across this line, so that when we send a police officer on a bicycle, they can tell people get behind the line and they know definitively that it's a line. McNichol said, I don't want anything permanent. And he said, I want it to be orange, to be spirited, so that it looks like it's part of it. So we did a water-based soluble paint. They put it down Friday morning from 4 to 6 in the morning. They dry it, and then it lasts until about the next week.
If it rains or not.
If it rains, it'll wash it off. But we actually saw remnants of it at the Christmas parade and used part of it at the Christmas parade to help keep people back. So
a lot of planning goes in. No wonder you start in July.
Oh, yeah. We actually start the 2 weeks after the event, meeting with this year's group, getting notes and things that happen and trying to get it in their books, because they have what they call Bibles. And those Bibles tell them everything that they need to do. And here's considerations that need to be made if you had this happen. And here's considerations that you need to do if this comes up, and so forth. So, yeah, it's about a 6-inch 3-ring binder. So not only do I keep it in print, because I can't remember everybody's call sign and everything, but when the day of the parade, I park just south of the intersection and I monitor all the radio that is going on, and I call out all the different things that's happening to all the different groups. So when parade's 5 minutes out, I make the announcement over 6 radio channels that the parade's starting, and then let them know when the parade's about to start, when it has started, when the first entries cross the intersection, and so forth. So, because those are all trigger points for them to do different things. So
it usually starts at 9.
So the parade start time is actually based on the game time.
Okay.
So if it's 11 o'clock, it's 8 o'clock parade. If the game starts at 11 or 11:30, it's 8 o'clock. If the game starts after or at 1 or after, it's 9 o'clock. Okay. So one of the biggest things that is a big misconception among walk around and homecoming, or walk around and parade for homecoming, is that walk around and parade are not the event, right? There are events that are taking place, but the event is that football game. It's game day. People are going to a football game. There's 65,000 seats inside. There's another 10 to 15,000 people that are tailgating outside. Every major artery, ingress route in this town is being used. And one of the things that we're doing on parade day is we are blocking off a major artery in this community to have a parade, and then we are dispersing that parade in game day traffic for most part. Now, there are some provisions that we make. So there's 3 ways to go at the end of the parade. Based on your entry, depends on where you go at the end of the parade. So, for example, if you have a large truck and trailer that's pulling a lot of kids and you can't safely go out and get into traffic and drive legally, we send you behind the Bradford Plaza. We allow parents to park out front, and then they have a reunification area back there where parents and kids can be reunited, and then they can leave together. If you're a float, we let you go north out of the end of the parade. If you're an OSU entry, you go, back to the west to OSU, and we do it. And there's 6 different colors.
And they probably know that ahead of time.
We meet with every parade entry at a safety meeting at OSU about 2 weeks out, and they have to attend or they don't get to be in the parade. they have to have somebody in attendance or they don't get to be in the parade.
So your day starts pretty early, regardless of what time the parade starts.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we don't go home. So Friday morning, we usually come in around 7. At noontime, we start to move assets. By 4 o'clock, we're online. By 5:30, the event is started and people are in place working their assignments. It's usually over around 10:30 or 11. By midnight, we've got everything picked up and put up. So we secure it. We either take it, stow it back, or we bring it here for redeployment. Then we take about an hour break for ourselves in the office from about 1 to 2. And then from 2 till the end of the parade, which is usually around noon the next day, we're doing nothing but parade responsibilities. The week before, we have to go out and we have to paint lines in the staging areas so that people know where they're starting and where they're, hey, we follow these arrows to get to a parade. We've started painting numbers at the beginning of the blocks so that people know they're in the right spot. And we typically put 6 entries per block. Typically. Now, sometimes you can only do 3. Sometimes you can do 8. But most typically, it's 6.
Well, since it's the 100th year, do you want to expand the parade route?
So we do. No, we're not going to expand the parade route. But what we will do is the staging area right now is from 9th Street to 12th Street. Okay. And if we have to, we can go ahead and expand all the way to 14th Avenue. So we can grab, I think it's 10 more blocks.
So just
that's 60 more entries.
Time-wise parade, just not longer.
Yes.
Distance-wise.
Yeah. So we expect it to be longer. So probably what we will push OSU to do is to let us have an 8 o'clock start time, because it'll probably be a 2-hour and 30-minute parade versus an hour and 15 minutes.
Well, you can't ever retire. You got all this down pat. You can't retire.
Sorry. Yeah. Yeah, but I got about 20 more years where I can retire anyway, so we're okay.
Well, hopefully this 2015 would be the only time something really bad happens.
I would like to think that, yeah. I'd like to think we got our one and done out of the way, but unfortunately, we plan for the worst all the time and hope for the best.
Well, I mean, some of these same things that you've got in place for this could be for some other episode that might be taking place like across the country.
I've done this presentation about 40 times now to different groups, different counties that have countywide events that are on major highways, to cities, to some tribal organizations. Each time people go, man, I didn't even think of that. Man, never even thought about that. We've, after 2015, we had people contacting us about these barriers that can be put up almost, in 2 hours. Or they talk about the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade in New York, about how they use what we call the bicycle panels that interlock, and you can stack them up all along down the route. But so I mentioned to you earlier that we're having an event within the event, right? The event is game day. That's all that it's about. We happen to have a parade that day. Anything that we put up has got to be able to put up in 10 minutes or less, and it's got to be taken down as fast. So we're going to put it up, have the event, and take it down immediately. So all the jersey barriers that were offered to us would take us, 12 plus hours to set up. And we would have to block off so many roads hours before the event even took place. And here's the other thing. Every time we do something that protects people either at walk around or at the parade, that also prevents us from responding to those same people in an emergency situation. So we have to be very conscientious about, if we deploy this method, it's going to prevent us from being able to get to those people in an emergency. So if we had jersey barriers down the whole length of the parade, what's a fire truck going to do if they've got to respond to a house fire across town and they've got to cross the parade route at some point? Now then, they're going to be super delayed because they're going to have to drive so far around it to get back to the wherever they're going that loss of life is very big possibility. So we have to be very diligent in understanding what those minute changes mean because they can have huge impacts on the backside.
Well, then after a day like that, how did you relax and debrief? I mean, just debrief might be a wrong word, but just.
I just went home, and I remember it was cloudy that day, and I remember thinking, there's no way helicopters should have been able to fly today. The flight deck was way too low for clouds. I just don't think they should have been able to fly. But they were able to. But I remember it was cool out when I got home, and I parked in the driveway like I always do, and I went in, and we have these folding recliner lawn chairs. And I got one of those recliner lawn chairs, and I went and set it out into the grass away from the truck, because I remember the truck was warm from having run for the last almost 20 hours. And I set it in there in the driveway, and I went and grabbed myself a drink, and sitting there, and the dog came out to see me. And so I knew my wife wasn't far behind, and my wife never said anything. She just came over and bent over, kissed me on the head, and she said, "Tough day today." And I said, "Yep." And she went and grabbed a chair, and she came over and sat down next to me, and we just didn't say anything. We just sat there. And then the neighbors saw us out, and they brought their chairs over, and we just kind of sat there, and it's just kind of a neighborhood rehab, if you will. And, we didn't talk about anything much. And there's a couple questions that they had that they wanted to know specifics on and stuff. And I told them what I was allowed to tell them at the time. And but for the most part, we just all sat and it's quiet and watched the small kids in the neighborhood play with each other, because all the parents are sitting there, and we just watched the small kids play with the dogs and stuff. And it's almost like it was a really bad dream.
Mm-hmm.
And I woke up and trying to decide, did that really happen? Was that for real? Was that a test? And that was a real deal. But one of the things I forgot, and as I sit here, I remember so many different things, and I don't know if you want to know all of them
Sure.
or not. But
whatever you want to share.
When I got to the incident, Mac was the city manager. Norman McNichol was the city manager. I call him Mac, and he had gone on a fishing trip and was coming back that weekend.
In Colorado,
yeah. And I remember, I thought, oh boy, here we go. So I dialed his number, and he answered, and he said, "Hello, my son. How are you?" And I said, "Listen, I need you to focus on what I'm fixing to say to you. I need you to focus on my words. We just had a car come through the crowd at the homecoming parade." And I said, "We've got several dead and several injured." And I said, "You need to find somebody that is not me. Call them that is not here. Have them come up here and be your eyes and ears for you to tell you all the things that are going on, because I can't stay on the phone and tell you everything that's going on." I said, "But you have got to find somebody to stay in the loop with." I said, "Somebody's got to, but I can't do it." I said, "Do you understand what I said?" He said, "You have got to be kidding me." And I said, "No, sir, I wouldn't kid about this." I said, "But do you understand what I said?" He said, "Absolutely." I said, "All right, I'll see you when you get back. Got to go." And he said, "Hang in there." And that was it. And then next thing I saw a couple hours later, I saw another officer that was off duty that had his,
in that role.
Yeah, in that role, that had his phone up and I could tell he was talking to Mac and telling him all the different things that were going on. But we got recognized by OU Medical Center. We received an award, Stillwater did, for our involvement with that, for being able to come in and do a mass casualty incident and be able to process that many patients and get them shipped. But something that most people don't look at is we shipped 50 plus people. Well, that's not true. We shipped about 15 people to them. They were able to process all those people. What's even more amazing, this is what I was trying to get at, Stillwater Medical Center. they processed everybody else.
Mm.
Everybody. So not only did they have the patients in the rooms with their one closest person that could go with them, but they had all the waiting room, all the hallway, everywhere else. They had to clear rooms that they don't typically use to make them emergency rooms so that those people could be tended to. And I'm telling you, the hospital did absolutely the most fantastic job you've ever seen. Getting people by the busload, by the carload, walk-ins, everything. They processed every single one of them, and they never skipped a beat. Now, I will say this, and I was kind of glad to hear this because we don't train on this enough, but we use technology every day. But when we go to an emergency situation, technology is usually the first thing that fails. They went back to pad and paper. Pad and paper, a notepad, and a clipboard for every patient's room. So that's how they did it.
And then would they send them to other hospitals
If they needed to
if
go.
They needed to go?
A lot of people were treated here and it could be released.
And was there like a command center, for lack of a better word, where people could call to see who had got?
So we did it here with the police department. Captain Kyle Gibbs collected all that information throughout the course of the day and got that information. So if people would call here looking for a loved one or wanting to know, is this name sound familiar? We can't get a hold of this person. They could go through the list of everybody. But, a lot of people that were flown, we didn't have their information.
That's what I'm thinking. And then HIPAA would keep
some of that. But so now then, if we can, we write on their arm in a magic marker where they're from, what their chief complaint was, any meds that have been pushed, and a phone number to call when they arrive.
Okay, so that's a lesson you learned from.
It's a lesson we learned. We found out that our triage cards weren't the same from the ambulance service to the fire department. They weren't the same kind of card, and they weren't being used in the same style. So we've worked that out. LifeNet, Michael Hoffman specifically, and Zach had told us that they had those triage tarps, but they had never trained with them before. But they went and got them off the ambulance, or with the medical officer, got them off the ambulance and rolled them out and spread them out, and people flocked to those. In the presentation that I do, in the video that I show, there's people sitting on this green tarp that don't appear to have any type of medical injury, right? Maybe a little scratch or something, right? But what we overlooked in the chaos of things was these people were traumatized, emotionally and physically traumatized. They didn't know, can I leave? Am I okay? Do I need to tell somebody what I saw? Here's somebody that's getting me a drink of water and giving me an ice pack, but, I don't really need it, but, what do I do? Where do I go from here? I just saw something very, very traumatic. What do I do? And so luckily, Dr. Lee Bird, who worked at OSU at the time, was very forward thinking and was able to establish those counseling times with people where people could come in and visit with counselors, and got all that set up so that anybody that was an OSU student that was impacted got the opportunity to visit with somebody.
Do you know if they used it?
Oh, absolutely. There's a lot of people that came and talked to them. Yeah, a lot of people that came and talked to them. And if they had their information from where they, said, hey, my name is so-and-so, I saw this, and they wrote down a witness statement, we collected that data and provided it to them as well. So
a lot of things going on then.
Oh yeah.
I don't know how you managed to keep your head straight. It probably seemed like slow motion when it was happening.
When it was happening, yeah. There were times where it would go from just slow motion to like 10 times fast forward, and then it would slow mo again, and you'd be like, what did I just miss? What was that? Okay, whatever. Let's keep going. Seemed like an eternity, right, when we were there. Things happened very fast, but at the same time, it seemed like slow motion. Seems like we were just running so slow we couldn't get anything processed, and we were actually doing a really good job.
Did the national team tell you that overall you did a great job?
The national team?
The national transport.
Yeah, they told us that we did a fantastic job and that we could set some standards based on the things that we implemented that year. And I would like for them to come back and look at what we do now based on what we did, because we're doing so much more. So much more. Yeah. Little things like, so we got dinged for not turning the lights on flash at the intersections. So now then I call on the radio to the traffic control supervisor and I tell him, totally, we're ready to go. And all of a sudden you'll start seeing the lights down Main Street start a 4-way flash. And that's 5 minutes before. And then I'll give out the 5-minute all call to everybody, let them know, go ahead and secure your positions on your intersections and hold them. And they'll hold their positions so that the parade route is absolutely clear. Nobody's traveling on that parade route. Or if they are, they're being intercepted and pulled off, at the closest intersection. I feel like we do so much more now. It requires a lot. It's a big investment from the city, right? We've tried to put a dollar amount on it, and I think we're pretty close. But what's that dollar amount worth? It's only worth the paper that it's printed on, right?
Yeah.
For everything else, because something like that happens in your own hometown. Not only does it have a financial toll to your organization, but it has a physical and mental toll as well. So, some people don't ever want to work the event again. Some people didn't want to be here. They didn't want to be associated with the possibility of disaster. They just were done. And I can't blame them for that, right? It's not for everybody. I have to admit I'm a little bit of an adrenaline junkie. So I some of that really kind of kicks me into gear and really lets me be who I really am, I guess, if you will. But this one was different, right? This one was, after we got through everything, you look back, you think, man, this is really a bad deal. And this is by far and away the worst thing that's ever happened here. I mean, we talked about the tornado in May of 90,
Mm-hmm.
where we had one life lost. And again, it was a small child. But if you look at all the people impacted that survived, and here we had maybe a 2-block incident where 54 people were injured and 4 people died. Yeah, so pretty impactful for just such a small area. And for a long time, I wouldn't drive through the intersection. I'd drive by it, I'd look at it, but when we get done, I'll show you the wall down here where we've got the picture of the intersection when everybody had brought out, like the stuffed animals and the crosses and the remembrance things and everything. And I remember the Sherrara Museum and OSU was going to come pick everything up because it was going to rain, because it was kind of getting into wintertime. It was going to rain and people didn't want that stuff damaged. And they left the one sign, behind as a remembrance. But and then our awards down there, and then our Stillwater Strong shirts down there, and then the names of the people that lost their lives.
And it's your ribbon.
Oh yeah, wear my ribbon as a constant reminder that no matter what I'm doing, I need to not lose sight of why I'm doing it.
Well, I mean, you acted really well that day. Sounds like to me.
Well, I appreciate that. I always look back and I think I could have done so much better than I did.
You got the coppers in and out really quick.
Yeah, we did. I actually, 2 of the helicopter pilots wanted to come to Stillwater one day, after it was probably a month later. And they came in and wanted to visit with me. And they first thing one of them asked me was, where'd you do your military training? And I said, well, I did. And he goes, well, how did you know what to tell us? And I said, from mistakes from the other helicopters that landed before you. And he goes, son, he said, I've been in the war. And he said, we've sat down in events like that before. And he said, they didn't run as smooth as what it did that day. And, again, I go back to we were lucky, right? Everything fell into place. A very bad thing happened, but then we were allowed to respond to it in the way that we needed to. And I'm a Christian. I believe in God and Jesus, and I believe that day, something bad was allowed to happen, but God let us respond to it and respond accordingly.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's something you would never have imagined graduating from Pawnee and
yeah, right.
no plans but just to work.
Yeah, and then the notoriety that goes along with it, is embarrassing. Everybody recognizes you from seeing you on TV or hearing your name as doing something really outstandingly well, and their words, not mine, but so you get phone calls from everybody around saying, "Oh man, that's a good job. You did a good job." And all I can think of was if I had done a good job, maybe that wouldn't have taken place, So it's hard to think that we did a good job, because we're so critical of the things that we didn't do and the things that we should have done. And you think back, man, if only. So
you can't control that one person either.
Cannot control it. And if you look at today's world and the place we live in, we live in a free country. People are free to come and go, and people are free to do different things, and those freedoms allow them opportunities to do bad things to good people, and that's the world we live in, and that's how we train, and that's how we practice, and that's how we prepare for these special events. So when people come and talk to us, or they want to know what are we doing about certain things, and we tell them, we have snipers at our events. We have our officers in riot gear and military gear. And we have them placed at every square block so that they can cover, multiple blocks at one time. Excuse me, people are like, well, you're not the military. No, but, we have to be prepared and be ready, to respond in such a way to protect those people. So protect the participants, protect the people that are working the event. And all the kids that put all that stuff on, so it's people last year got to see us for the first time really with our immediate response teams. And, it's not hard. If you look up, you can see a police officer with a rifle and a pair of binoculars on top of a building. And we actually did from the community, and I believe they were citizens of the community, told us, "We are so glad you're here. We're so glad that you are doing your job so that we can come here and enjoy this event, and we don't have to worry about it." So, and one of those makes up for all the badness, right? So, yeah, it's good.
It's good. Stillwater's lucky to have you.
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate that.
I'm sitting here thinking, and this is a small parade. How does places like Macy's, how do that parade just? So
they do. They have different boroughs in New York City where they can call on New York City police officers from across the whole state,
that's true.
And they get to help. But we are the largest homecoming parade in the state, or in the nation. In the nation, yeah. So and we're the largest homecoming. So walk around, combined with the parade, we've got well over 100,000 alumni that are in town at some point in time that week, with a concentration of 60 to 80,000 people in attendance at walk around, and another 15 to 25,000 in attendance at the parade, with 7,500 to 10,000 in the parade itself. So,
and for more than a 24-hour period.
Absolutely. And then transition to a 100,000 person event at the football stadium, with all the people that are coming in to watch the game, to work the game, to tailgate at the game, So it's it's quite the event. We don't get much rest that weekend.
Take vacation afterwards.
No, because then we're on to the Christmas parade and planning for it.
And going over to see what worked and didn't work the last round. Never ends. So.
Yeah, I saw Tom Williams the other day, who's been doing the Christmas parade for quite a while. Saw him at the fair, and he said, "Hey, I need to come by and see you, talk about Christmas." And I said, "Not till after October 19th.
Well, that's not all you do, though. You don't just do parades. Right. You've got to do, like if a tornado siren goes off, that type of thing. You deal with too, and the floods.
Yeah.
The flooded.
Yeah, we worked so many hours during the flooding, just trying to stay on top of where the floods were at, what roads were going to be closed or opened. Trying to get it out on social media, trying to let people see on FaceTime where things were happening, and monitoring the water. And then we had several bouts of severe weather with small tornadoes embedded in them and stuff. And so yeah, we definitely have a full-time job all the time. That's for sure. And because our primary job is to make sure that the city's ready for those types of disasters. But
So how big's your team on a normal day?
three people.
Three people.
Yeah, it's me and emergency management technician and the communications technician. So we wear lots of different hats, and it won't be anything for one of those guys to be leading something and I'm basically washing dishes or sweeping the floor type of deal. So, I mean, we kind of all interchange a little bit, but, in the end, it all kind of falls back to me.
And then what do you do for fun?
I work.
No, that's not a good answer.
No, sorry, that's the answer.
You golf or read or crochet or...
When I was younger, I hunted a lot. I hunted a lot. As a matter of fact, we moved our wedding from October to September so that I could be sure to go hunting in October. But I used to hunt a lot. I'm on the Perkins Fire Department as a volunteer firefighter. I'm a reserve police officer for Stillwater.
That's not downtime.
It's not, but it's fun, and I like it.
Yeah,
I like being involved, and I like being able to know that if I can go out and help somebody that's doing something, make a difference and make it better, then I'm good with that. I don't take many vacations, and I don't go fishing as my release, or I don't go hunting. I mean, I still hunt, but not as my release.
Do you at least sleep 8 hours a night?
No, haven't done that in a while. Yeah, I can sleep about 3 or 4 solid hours, but then it takes me a while to get to sleep, and then in the morning when it's time to wake up, my mind just starts reeling with all the things that need to be done, whether it's today's activities, this week's activities, this month's, this year's, or big projects that we got going on. So, yeah, there's always something.
Well, you picked a good profession for your personality, I guess. Then.
Well, I followed in my dad's footsteps. He started out as a fire marshal with the fire department and quickly went to Payne County Civil Defense. And when that program was dissolved by the county commissioners, he came here. Carl Weinog hired him to do it for the city of Stillwater. And back then they couldn't really be civil defense because that was more of a county thing. So they named it Emergency Coordination and Communications. And he worked here till 91. Then he went to the state and worked his way up to the deputy director position. Retired from there, went to work for the city of Oklahoma City as their 911 comm center director. And retired from there, and then came to OSU and works at OSU as emergency management director. Currently.
Oh, he's not really retired.
No, he's 75 and he's not retired.
So he was around when 2015
Oh, yeah.
was.
Yeah, he was at the stadium. He was actually doing their portion of the emergency response plans to help us get through our stuff.
So do you exchange like advice or ask questions to each other, or he
I
understands where you're coming from?
I ask him all the time, but he hardly ever asks me. He usually knows. He's forgot more than I'll know. But yeah, our offices work very closely together.
Did he say good job that day for that day?
He did.
Do you remember?
He did.
Yeah, that means something.
It was a couple of weeks later, but he did. He wanted to give me a little space and a little decompression time, but he did. He came in and he walked in and closed the door, and he said, "I'm not here as your peer, your cohort." He said, "I'm here as your father," and he said, "I just want to tell you did a very good job, son. I'm very proud of you."
That made a big difference, didn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
So
pat on the back.
yeah. So, but our offices work very closely together. For example, one of the responsibilities that we have is, OSU football starting. So we have our first home football game this week, and we support OSU public safety here in our office on game days. So we're here working when they're working up there. So if they have to leave from the command post suite at Boone Pickens and transition to their EOC for some reason, we can maintain whatever it is they've got started here. And we can do it with weather, or we can do it with monitoring cameras or whatever it may be, right? So because we have OSU police officers with Payne County Sheriff's Office, with OSU PD, with other small communities that have officers that want to work overtime assignments at the football game. We work with all of them in the coordination piece. We're a support piece for them, for their operations.
You didn't get to watch the games.
We don't get to watch the games
I guess you can sit in the background.
Yeah, unless we can see. We'll walk down the hall and I'll show you that room if you're interested. But where we work and we do have TV, so if it's a televised game, we can see it. But we also have special abilities on our phones to be able to watch the games. And the reason is it's not we're watching the game. It's so if we do have something that is happening, we can see what quarter they're in, how much time is left, and for example. Just to give you an idea, if you have, and let's just say, and we'll make it a low number, say 80,000 people at the stands, and you got severe weather coming. Last thing OSU wants to find out is that we're blowing our sirens for a tornado warning because we didn't call them and tell them that we're fixing to do it right. They don't want to hear it happening. They want to know that it's going to happen. So that's one of the coordination pieces.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and they have trigger mechanisms. So if a storm hits a certain mile out, it trips certain messages that happen that they tell people so that they can kind of help people get started leaving.
If there's lightning in the area, or
well, yeah, lightning. They'll just ask them to step underneath, But if there's severe weather coming, hail, wind, possibility of tornadoes, then they start really ramping those up at those mile markers to put out the different messages. So.
The common person doesn't know all this.
Oh no,
we're just thankful it happens.
that's the way we like to be, right? So, our office is always a behind the scenes, and sometimes that's good, and sometimes that's bad. Sometimes we're forgot about when it comes time for budget, but it's really good that the community can go and enjoy those things, and we know that we did our due diligence to make sure that they're okay. That they were able to come to a safe environment, enjoy and have a good time and go home and never give it a second thought that we were even there. And that's what we strive for.
Kind of seamless.
Seamless. Yeah.
Well, we've covered a lot. Is there anything else you want to add?
I've just got thousands of little things that keep popping up in the back of my mind that are kind of out of context with what we were talking about just because we kind of jiggled some things loose, but nothing that really comes to mind that's detrimental to the story. But do you have anything specifically?
Just a little bit about storm chasing.
Okay, very good. Let's talk about it. Yeah. Okay. So
that's your adrenaline junkie. I guess
yeah,
goes back to that's what
go.
I was thinking.
So
what got you interested in that?
Yeah, there's two. There's two ways to monitor storms, severe weather. And there's storm chasing, and then there's storm spotting. So for us, the definition of a storm spotter is somebody that goes to an area of convection, follows a storm through its infancy stage, through its mature stage, through the development stage, and into the dissipation stage. And they're looking for that 30-second window of a large tornado that is in its full glory, and they can sell that video, right? Okay. They do sometimes stop and help people, but their main primary objective is that storm and what can it do. Storm spotting, which is what we do. So our department, I told you we're a 3-person department, but we have 17 volunteers. So they're just regular Joe Blow citizens from the community that just want to give back to their community, and this is the department or the avenue that they chose to give back. Usually they're a little bit of an adrenaline junkie. Usually it's driven because they kind of want to be on the know and on the inside of the things that are happening. They want to know all the intricate details like what we just talked about on the things that we do. But they storm spot. So we bring them in. They have so much training that they have to do before we let them out on their own. Part of that is the National Incident Management Training and the Incident Command Structure Training, and then Storm Spotter Training. And we do all of our Storm Spotter training in-house. Yeah, we do all of it in-house. And we get them proficient in being able to identify cloud structures. So it could be a short video clip, and we ask them, what do you see, right? And we're looking for things that are going on at the ground level, at the cloud level. We're looking for inflow, outflow. We're looking for the action area, right? They have to be able to see all these things in just a matter of seconds and put together a whole puzzle and be able to determine, what am I going to report, okay? Or they might look at a still image that might be a trick, might not be exactly what you think it is. Might be scud cloud, or it might be a lowering. It could be a wall cloud. It, could be something else. But they have to be able to look at it and examine it and tell us, I don't know if I have enough information to tell you what's going on yet. And that's what we're looking for. We're looking for that honesty piece, right? So if they can say, I don't know, we're okay with that, right? Because that means that they need to watch it for a few more seconds or minutes to be able to make a determination, and they're going to make a good report as a result. So what we do is we put them through those processes, then we pair them together. We usually try to put somebody that's got more experience, or a senior person with a more junior person. So the idea is that junior person can ask that senior person all these questions in the field and get those answers for all those questions that they've got that they don't know to ask here. And then we send them out to predetermined locations, depending on where the storm's coming from, and have them go and sit and watch and let the storm come to them, report what they see. And then sometimes we have them follow it through, not chase it, but just follow it, just to make sure that we don't have something that develops. And the whole concept of storm spotting versus storm chasing is it's for a community, it's for the greater good. It is a reporting mechanism, and it is an alerting mechanism. So we have storm chasers come through here all the time, and they will call us on the phone and go, hey, we got this, and we're seeing this in this area, and we're passing this location right now, but we're moving out of your jurisdiction onto somewhere else. So if you got a storm spotter in the field that can verify this, you might send them to look here. So, that was somebody that did us a good job, right? You got others that come through here and never tell you a thing. We've had the news media come through Stillwater before and go, oh my gosh, I can't believe the storm sirens are not going off in this town. I cannot believe this. And then our phone blows up, and then we have to spend 2 weeks getting beat up by the people that live here because we didn't do what the news media said, when in all honesty, it wasn't anything.
Was it close or wasn't?
Yeah.
Very
The other thing is I am the City of Stillwater Emergency Management Director. There is a county emergency management director and department and staff. But we do send people out into the county and to the county line to intercept storms and to report that back. So we have them on the leading edge. We have them inside the county, and we have them right at the edge of the city, so that we get the initial report, we get the follow-up report, and we get the report just before it comes into the community. And those reports, and I don't have it up now, but on one of my status monitors that I have, is the National Weather Service NWS chat, where they talk amongst themselves, and they allow us to see it. We can actually interact with them and tell them the reports that we're seeing. It can actually trigger a severe thunderstorm warning or a tornado warning if we have a report that they hadn't seen on radar yet. So our people, we like to think that they're very well trained and very well versed. In the off season, which is kind of October through February-ish, we meet every month they will see some pictures of some storms from that year, and they have to tell us about them. So we don't ever let them off the hook. They help us determine if we're going to activate our storm sirens in town and alert the community. So we have basically 3 different systems in town. We have a closed system that goes to nursing homes, public schools, and the hospital. And we can make pre-announcements to them that we have severe weather in the area. Storm spotters are reporting this, this, and this, and you should take safety precautions against these. And those are usually the big ones, right? Where we think that they might morph into a tornado or we're going to have large damaging hail. That's because what most people don't think about is hospitals, nursing homes, and assisted living centers and schools take a lot of time to move a large group of people to safety. Surgeries have to be stopped mid-surgery. People on higher level floors have to be moved to lower level. They have to go in and close the curtains, and those are special curtains in those rooms. So if the window gets broke out, the curtain absorbs whatever's coming through, right? You got people on life support. You got people on oxygen that have to be moved. You got nursing homes where they have to go room to room and move the bed away from the window and close the drapes and lock those exterior doors in case that they get broke out or breach, so that they'll keep the wind and debris out. And you got surgery center, you got kidney dialysis, you got cancer treatments, you got all this that is going on that those people have to make a decision based on the information that we provide them at the time. Do we continue? Do we chance it? Or do we stop what we're doing and try to hold it in a holding pattern? Then we alert the community. We alert the community through the outdoor warning systems. We've teamed up with Team Radio to make announcements to the community so that you have live, up-to-date information from our office to you in the field. And then we have Be Informed Stillwater, or our Smart 911, where you can sign up for all those types of text alerts, phone calls, and emails. Then, when it's all over, we go back and we use our mass notification system for the all clear. We do an all clear over that radio system for the nursing homes, schools, hospitals, and stuff, assisted living. We go back and do the all clear for that, and then we do the all clear over the radio so that everybody knows that the threat's passed, so that they know if they took cover, now they can come out. So
That's a lot.
it is. So, and it all boils down to the fact that radar out of Norman, out of Vance, or out of Enid, and out of Tulsa, all those 3 radars are almost equidistant from Stillwater, and the lowest they can see is about 5,000 foot above the ground. Most tornadoes happen within 1,000 or less. So they can't see 5,000 feet or below, so we have to have those storm spotters that go and sit and wait for those storms to come in to give us that ground truth. Now, we know a lot about what's going on in the storm just based on reflective signatures, velocity signatures, and everything else, but we don't truly know until we get the report from the field from the storm spotter that's stationary, that's monitoring everything around them, from up to down to the direction that the wind is, to the speed that it is, to the rainfall, to the hail. We don't know all of that until they tell us that. And that's why storm spotting for us is so much better than storm chasing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, storm chasing is more exhilarating because you can actually run parallel with a storm and see inside that action area. And if you're lucky, you get that glimpse of that tornado or that funnel or that wedge tornado that's coming down. And hopefully it's not in a metropolitan area, or it's in a rural area, and it's just dirt and trees and stuff like that. Whereas we don't want it to come to town. And I will tell you, there's been lots of prayers said under the breath and just in the mind when the weather hits here, because we just don't want it to happen here. So, lots of times you'll be sitting there going, oh, please, don't hit. Yeah.
It works.
Yeah, it works. It seems to work, right? I mean, like, for example, the other day we were watching that storm that started out north of Enid out by Garber, went straight to Perry, was coming right at us, stopped, And so the front's moving from the northwest to the southeast. This storm's moving right along the front, doing exactly what it would normally do, coming right towards us. Gets to Perry, says, I think I'll go south down the cold front. Starts traveling down 86 highway, then over to I-35, gets down to Edmond, south of Edmond, and turns into a tornado.
Yeah, I know, from my son.
Yeah. See, so, and it didn't happen here, so we'd like to think that luck favors the prepared.
So in a normal week, this will be my last question.
No, that's fine.
Maybe in a normal week, like this week, I guess that might be not a normal week. How many of those days might be calm days?
Oh, for example, for the weather for this week, every day is a calm day.
Well, not just weather though, for your whole,
Well,
what all you have to do.
So Monday I came in on my day off to catch up, to get ready for the week.
Yeah.
Yesterday we had meetings and things to attend, and to work through some projects that we've got going on. And this morning I got out of a local emergency planning committee meeting and went right to injury accident that I think turned out to be a signal 30 or a death on a motorcycle. Ended up having to fly our drone or our small SUAS to take images or take pictures and video of the scene. Come back here for a meeting, and then we went to lunch, and then I had some unexpected visitors, and then I get to visit with you today, and then this evening I got a meeting with OSU staff, and I'll meet with them tonight from 6 to 8, and I'll get to go home. And that's a pretty normal day. I average about 3,200 hours a year.
I'm thinking it's more than 40 a week.
Yeah. I usually try to work about 16 to 18 hours a day. There's just a lot of stuff to do and keep up with.
It's salary, not hourly.
It's hourly, not hourly. And one of the things is, the city manager's office is on us to try to shave overtime, right? Try to keep those expenses down. So, like last week, we were at the fair all week. It was Payne County Fair, and we were there every day. So I had staffs altered so that they were coming in at 2 and working till 10. And then they would have to take off each corresponding day. So every day from 7 to 2, I was by myself. So I was having to do everything. So if the phone rang, I had to get up and go do their job or my job or whatever job it was. And then they worked Saturday, and I actually chose to take off Saturday. I stayed home. I let them have that 5-hour stretch on Saturday, but then they had to take off yesterday to compensate for it. So I only had one employee here yesterday for 2 hours, and they had to take off.
So with all of that, what keeps you going? Just like the love of the job?
I think so.
The love of the job.
I'm very fortunate. I really do love my job. Now, I'm not going to tell you there's not times I get tired, right? There's not times that I need a break, because there are. Mm-hmm. But I love my job. I love the people that I work with. I love the things that I do. And I love being able to go on a scene with, whether it's my internal customers like the police department or the fire department or whoever, electric department. I love being able to go on scene and be able to make their job easier. Mm-hmm. That's what I like, right? The paperwork, pushing that stuff, keeping the office going is necessary, and I don't mind it, but it's not my favorite. But my goal for here is to be able to train the people below me so that when I'm gone, this department can continue to move forward. But the other thing is to continue to make a name for this office and let Stillwater be recognized for all the accomplishments and the things that we do, right? So, and we get a lot of recognition. We get a lot of phone calls from a lot of jurisdictions. Well, no, hey, what do you guys do about this? Or, hey, what do you do about this? Or, sometimes it's applicable and sometimes it's not. Sometimes, we have a stormwater manager. We're not the floodplain administrator here. So I get lucky in some of that stuff. I don't have a lot of the responsibilities, but I'm coming on the end of my last year as the Oklahoma Emergency Management Association president. Mm-hmm. And that kind of pulls me in several directions. For example, I think it's next Wednesday. We're going to Topeka, Kansas to speak to the association at their conference on the 2015 homecoming crash and do a presentation. And I told Mike, who's the president up there, I said, hey, listen, I don't do this presentation anymore. I said, but for you, I said, I will because it's peer-to-peer. I said, I'll do it, but I said, I'm not doing it anymore. So, you know.
You just need to sit down in front of the camera and do it once, and you can just say here.
You know, I've
here,
got through the
here.
first 4 slides, and I can't seem to get to the other 50. Yeah,
Oh, well.
can't seem to get through the other 50. So I have my notes, and it's all time. You know, you just start the timer and you just read. But a lot of times I'll sit down and think, man, I don't need to be doing this. I need to be doing this instead right now. So
Maybe have a fill-in do it.
maybe have a fill-in. Yeah, absolutely.
But then it gets the message out, so
Yeah.
why not?
So, and then we were going to make it available through our cloud and let people, anybody that want to go see it, just see it.
Mm.
So, but yeah, we've done it several times now, and I would rather talk about the things that we've done different than that day, because when I look at that day, I think about the failures that we had.
Oh,
And-
and then you have to look at the successes
Well,
too.
we look at the successes also, but yeah, I just I really felt like we could have done a better job, and so when we move forward, you know, this pen is a reminder. We can always do better. So
And we all can say that.
yeah, absolutely.
So. Yeah. So I'll end with one question. How do you want people to remember Rob Hill? We write about you in the history books. What do you want it to say? Made a difference?
Yeah, that would be fine. That would be good. Devoted, hard worker, never quit. That's what I want them to remember. Yeah.
Well,
Now maybe that'll change, right? Maybe I get a little older, that'll change. Maybe it'll be more family focused or something. But
now you follow in your father's footsteps.
that's true. You're right. You're right. And my wife knows that. My wife. Oh my gosh! I tell you, a lot of my successes are because of my family, right? Because of the understanding that they have, but my wife, she's a school teacher and she's a workaholic. Yeah, she's a kindergarten teacher and she's a workaholic. So, if we didn't have a 17-year-old at home that was a senior this year, you know, my wife would be at work just as much as I am. So
Well, she likes to make a difference too,
She
just
does.
in a different age group, I
yeah,
guess.
I just want people to know. I just want them to know that we made a difference, right? We did what we were supposed to do. Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing it with
Oh,
me today.
absolutely. You're
been great.
welcome.